The text message stared back at me from the glow of my phone screen. "Ethan is doing great. Don't worry about us." My mother's words, my mother's exclamation points. Everything should have felt fine. But 30,000 feet over the Pacific Ocean, hurtling toward home in the dead of night, my hands would not stop shaking. I read the message again, sent 2 hours ago, the same message she had been sending for 3 months. Different words, same meaning. "Your son is fine, stop worrying, focus on your work." But I had not spoken to Ethan directly in 3 days. I tried calling him yesterday. The phone rang and rang until my mother picked up. "He's playing with Madison," she said. "I'll have him call you back." He never did. I tried again this morning before boarding. "He's napping," my mother said. "Long day at school." 7 years old and suddenly too busy to talk to his own mother. The flight attendant walked past and I shoved my phone into my lap like I had been caught doing something wrong. I was being paranoid. I knew I was being paranoid. 3 months of video calls and text updates and photos of Ethan smiling in my parents' backyard. 3 months of my mother's reassurances delivered with the patience of a saint. But something felt wrong. I could not explain it, could not point to any single moment and say, there. It was more like a splinter buried too deep to see making itself known only when I pressed against it. And lately, every conversation pressed against it. I scrolled through our text history. Dozens of messages all following the same pattern. Me asking how Ethan was doing. My mother responding with cheerful updates. "He loves school, made a new friend today, ate all his vegetables at dinner." Each message punctuated with exclamation points as if enthusiasm could substitute for substance. Not once in 3 months had my mother sent me a photo of Ethan without me asking first. Not once had she let me talk to him without some excuse to cut the conversation short. I leaned my head against the cold window and watched the darkness outside. Somewhere below that darkness was my son. In 12 hours I would see him. Hold him, know for certain that everything was fine. I closed my eyes and told myself to breathe. 3 months earlier, I had stood in my tiny apartment phone pressed to my ear and listened to my mother make the offer that would change everything. "We'll take care of him," she said. "You focus on your career. This is your chance, Megan." I looked across the room at Ethan. He was sprawled on the carpet with his crayons drawing something that might have been a dinosaur or a spaceship, or both. 7 years old and already so serious about his art. He had my ex-husband's dark hair and my stubborn chin, and when he concentrated, he stuck his tongue out just a little, just like I did. "Mom, I don't know if I can leave him for that long." 6 months, she said. "That's nothing. He'll be in school most of the time anyway. And think about what you're giving him. Financial security, a future." She was right. She was always right about these things. The job offer was everything I had worked toward. Project manager for an international construction company based in Singapore. The salary was more than I had made in the past 3 years combined. After the divorce, after watching my savings evaporate, while my ex-husband moved on with his new girlfriend and his new life, this felt like a lifeline. "I'll send money every month," I said. $5,000 for anything he needs. Clothes, school supplies, activities, whatever. "Megan, that's too much." "It's not. He's my son. I want to make sure he has everything." My mother laughed, soft and warm. "You always were the responsible one." The responsible one, yes. That had always been my role. Ashley was the pretty one, the charming one, the one who needed extra help and extra attention and extra grace. I was the one who made the honor roll and got scholarships and never asked for anything because I knew there was nothing left to give. I had spent my entire childhood watching my parents pour everything they had into Ashley. Money for her dance lessons, time for her drama club performances, patience for her endless series of crises and breakdowns and boyfriend troubles. There was never anything left over for me. But that was fine. I learned to take care of myself. And now I was taking care of my son the only way I knew how. By working, by sacrificing, by sending money home and trusting that my parents would do what they promised. "He'll be loved," my mother said. "I promise you." Loved. The word felt like a contract, a guarantee. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay." Ethan looked up from his drawing. "Mommy, is that Grandma?" "Yes, baby." "Tell her I miss her." I smiled even though something heavy had settled in my chest. He says he misses you. Tell him we miss him too, my mother said. Tell him we can't wait to have him home. The plane touched down just after 9 in the evening local time. I moved through customs in a daze, my body running on caffeine and adrenaline and the desperate need to see my son. I tried calling Ethan's phone as I waited for my bag. 4 rings, then voicemail. I tried my mother's number. Voicemail. My father's number. Voicemail. It was late. They were probably getting ready for bed. Ethan had school in the morning. But I did not tell them I was coming. I wanted it to be a surprise. I had imagined his face when he saw me, the way he would run into my arms, the way everything would feel right again. The project had wrapped up early, and I had 2 weeks before my next assignment. 2 weeks of nothing but my son. The Uber driver was chatty the way Uber drivers sometimes are when they sense you are in no mood to talk. "Coming home for the holidays?" he asked. "Surprising my son. He doesn't know I'm back." "Nice." He nodded approvingly. "Family's everything right?" I didn't answer. I was too busy watching the familiar streets slide past the window. The same strip mall where I bought Ethan his first bicycle. The same park where we fed the ducks every Sunday morning. The same neighborhood where I grew up, where my parents still lived, where my son was waiting. We turned onto my parents' street, and the driver slowed. "Which house?" "The one with the blue shutters, on the left." He pulled to the curb, and I stared at the house through the window. Every light was off. "You sure someone's home?" the driver asked. "Their cars are in the driveway." 2 cars. My mother's sedan and my father's truck. They were home. They were just... asleep. At 9 o'clock, the driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Something shifted in his expression. "You know what they say. You can't choose your family, but you can choose who deserves your love." I blinked. "What?" He shrugged. "Something my grandmother used to say. Probably doesn't mean anything." He smiled. "Have a good night. Hope your son's happy to see you." I paid him and climbed out, dragging my suitcase behind me. The December air bit at my cheeks, sharp and cold. The house loomed in front of me, dark and silent. I walked to the side door, the one that led to the kitchen, the one I had used 1,000 times when I was a teenager sneaking in past curfew. The key still fit. The house smelled wrong. That was my first thought as I stepped inside. Not bad exactly, just different. Takeout containers and something stale underneath. The kitchen. I remembered the one that always smelled like my mother's cooking was gone. In its place was a mess of dirty dishes and fast food bags and an overflowing trash can that no one had bothered to empty. I set my suitcase by the door and moved through the room. The living room was worse. Toys everywhere. Princess toys. Pink and purple and glittery and absolutely not Ethan's style. A tiny plastic castle dominated the coffee table, surrounded by dolls and dress-up clothes and a tiara that sparkled in the faint streetlight coming through the window. Madison's toys. My sister Ashley's daughter. 5 years old, and apparently the center of the universe. I looked at the walls. The photos had changed. When I left 3 months ago, the mantel held a careful arrangement of family pictures spanning 3 generations. My grandmother's wedding photo. My parents' anniversary picture. Ethan's first birthday, his face covered in chocolate cake. All of it gone now. Replaced. Now it was all Madison. Madison at her dance recital. Madison at her birthday party. Madison with my mother, both of them beaming. Madison with my father sitting on his knee. Madison in a princess dress. Madison at the beach. Madison. 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 I searched for Ethan. I found one photo. One. Shoved behind a vase in the corner gathering dust. His school picture from last year. The frame was turned slightly, like someone had moved it and forgotten to put it back. Like someone had been embarrassed to display it at all. My heart started beating faster. I climbed the stairs. My old bedroom, the one I had given to Ethan when I moved out, was the first door on the right. I pushed it open and reached for the light switch. Pink. Everything was pink. The walls, once painted the soft blue that Ethan loved, were now a violent shade of bubblegum. A canopy bed sat where Ethan's race car bed used to be. More princess toys, more dolls. A tiny vanity table with a mirror shaped like a heart. stuffed animals piled in the corner, a closet full of frilly dresses. This was not Ethan's room anymore. This was Madison's room. I stood in the doorway, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Where was my son? Where was my son? The guest room. Maybe they had moved him to the guest room. I crossed the hall and opened the door. A home office. Desk computer filing cabinets. No bed, no toys, no evidence that a child had ever set foot in this room. The bathroom. Still a bathroom. My parents' room. Door closed. I could hear my father snoring. That left only one place. The basement. The thought came unbidden, and I pushed it away. No. They would not put Ethan in the basement. They would not. My parents were thoughtless sometimes, yes, careless, favored Ashley in ways that hurt, but they would never, never treat my son like that. Would they? But my feet were already moving, carrying me down the hall to the basement door. I pulled it open. Darkness stared back at me, and from somewhere below I heard crying. The stairs creaked as I descended. The sound of crying grew louder with each step. A child crying. My child crying. Ethan? The crying stopped. A hiccup. Then a small voice trembling and afraid. Mommy! I found the light switch at the bottom of the stairs. A single bulb flickered to life, casting harsh shadows across the concrete floor. The basement had been used for storage for as long as I could remember. Boxes and old furniture and holiday decorations that no one had touched in years. But now there was something else. A door. Small, set into the far wall. A door that had never been there before, or maybe a door I had never noticed, made of cheap plywood barely painted to match the surrounding wall. I crossed the basement and pulled it open. The room was barely bigger than a closet. Maybe 8 feet by 6 feet. A cot sat against one wall, blankets piled on top. A small lamp sat on an overturned crate, casting a weak yellow glow. The concrete floor was bare and cold. The air smelled stale and damp, like something that had been forgotten. And on the cot, curled into a ball, was my son. Ethan. I dropped to my knees beside him. He was burning up. His forehead felt like fire against my palm. His clothes were too small, straining at the seams, the same clothes he had been wearing when I left 3 months ago. His cheeks were hollow in a way they had never been before. His arms, when they reached for me, felt like sticks wrapped in skin. Mommy. His voice cracked. Is it really you? I'm here, baby. I'm right here. His arms wrapped around my neck and he sobbed into my shoulder. His whole body shook with it. 3 months. 3 months of these shaking sobs building inside a 7-year-old boy, and no one had been there to hear them. No one had held him. No one had told him it would be okay. On the floor beside the cot, I saw a bowl. Cold pasta, congealed and untouched. His dinner. They had given him leftover pasta and left him alone in a basement storage room to burn with fever. Next to the bowl was a plastic cup of water, half empty, and next to that a stack of papers, drawings. I picked one up with trembling hands. A picture of a house. A woman standing outside waving. A little boy inside the house alone, a single tear drawn on his cheek. Ethan's drawings. His way of telling a story no one was listening to. They said you weren't coming back, Ethan whispered. They said you had a new job and a new life, and you didn't want me anymore. The rage that had been building inside me, the slow burn that started the moment I saw Madison's toys scattered across the living room floor, erupted into something cold and sharp and deadly. Who said that? Grandma. She said you forgot about me. She said I was in the way. I held him tighter. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. Baby, that's not true. That's not true. I love you more than anything in this world. I came back for you. I'm never leaving you again. He pulled back just enough to look at me. His eyes were red and swollen from crying, but there was something else there, too. Something that looked like hope, like he wanted to believe me but had been hurt too many times to trust it. Promise? I promise. I wrapped him in the blanket from his cot and lifted him into my arms. He was so light, so terribly, terribly light. My strong, healthy boy had become this fragile, feverish child, and no one had told me. No one had bothered to mention that my son was wasting away in their basement. $5,000 a month. That was what I had sent. $15,000 over 3 months, enough to feed and clothe 10 children, enough to buy medicine and toys and anything else a 7-year-old boy could need. But Ethan had none of it. I climbed the basement stairs with my son in my arms. His head rested against my shoulder, heavy with fever and exhaustion. He had stopped shaking, but his skin still burned against mine. He needed a doctor. He needed medicine. He needed someone who actually cared whether he lived or died. I was halfway up when I heard it. The front door opened. Voices. Laughter. The sound of people who had just come home from a pleasant evening out. "That restaurant was amazing," Ashley said. "We have to go back." "Madison loved it," my mother said. "Did you see her with the breadsticks? She's such a character." More laughter. The shuffling of coats being removed. Keys dropped in a dish. The normal sounds of a family coming home. A family that did not include my son. "I should check on Ethan," my mother said. "Give him his medicine." My heart clenched. Medicine. So she knew he was sick. She knew, and she left him alone in the basement while they went out to dinner. My father's voice casual and unconcerned. "He'll be fine until morning. Let's watch that show you like." "Dad's right," Ashley said. "He was sleeping when we left. He probably slept through dinner." He slept through dinner. He slept through dinner because no one woke him up. Because no one cared enough to wake him up. Because he was not Madison. "Oh, Ashley," my mother said, her voice warm with affection. "That dress looks adorable on Madison. Where did you get it?" "That boutique downtown. I used the money you gave me." "The money I gave them. The money I sent every month for my son. $5,000 turned into boutique dresses for Madison while Ethan ate cold pasta in a basement. I stood frozen on the stairs, Ethan trembling in my arms. Above me, my family laughed and chatted and planned their evening entertainment, completely unaware that I was there, completely unaware that I had found what they had done. "When is Megan sending the next payment?" Ashley asked. "Tomorrow, I think," my mother said. "Why?" "I already called the spa. We have appointments Friday." The spa. $15,000 of my money, and they were planning spa days while my son starved. Ethan whimpered against my shoulder. His fever was getting worse. He needed help. He needed me. I took the first step. The stair creaked beneath my foot. The voices above went silent. A long pause. Then my mother's voice, sharp with confusion. "Did someone come in?" I did not answer. My foot found the next stair. Then the next. The door at the top of the stairs was closed, but light spilled from beneath it. On the other side of that door was my mother counting my money while my son burned with fever in her basement. On the other side of that door was my sister planning spa treatments paid for by my sacrifice. On the other side of that door was my father too comfortable in his silence to ever tell the truth. I reached the top of the stairs. My hand closed around the doorknob. Ethan looked up at me. His eyes were glassy with fever, but in them I saw something I recognized. Trust. He trusted me, and I was not going to let him down. Not again. Not ever again. I turned the handle and pushed the door open. The door swung open and light flooded the basement stairs. My mother stood in the kitchen, her hand still reaching for a wineglass on the counter. My father sat at the table, newspaper half raised, reading glasses sliding down his nose. Ashley was mid-laugh about something on her phone, the other hand resting on Madison's sleeping form curled up on the couch like a pampered cat. They all froze. For a long moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The only sound was Ethan's labored breathing against my shoulder and the steady hum of the refrigerator. Time seemed to stretch and bend the way it does in moments when everything is about to change. Then my mother's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine searching for a winning combination. Shock, fear, calculation, and then, landing with practiced precision, a warm, welcoming smile that would have fooled anyone who didn't know better. "Megan, sweetheart. What a wonderful surprise." She moved toward me, arms outstretched, as if she hadn't just been caught red-handed, as if her grandson wasn't burning with fever in my arms, as if everything was perfectly, wonderfully normal. I stepped back. "Don't." The single word stopped her cold. Her smile flickered but held like a light bulb about to burn out. Honey, you must be exhausted from your flight. Let me take Ethan and we can get you settled. Don't touch him. The smile finally cracked. Underneath it was something harder, something I had seen glimpses of my entire life, but had always pretended wasn't there. The real Linda Davis, the one who existed beneath the church volunteer and doting grandmother act. Ashley sat up straighter on the couch, careful not to wake her precious Madison. What's wrong with you? Mom's just trying to help. I looked at my sister. Really looked at her. The designer sweater that probably cost more than Ethan's entire wardrobe. The fresh manicure with little crystals embedded in the polish. The highlights in her hair that required touch-ups every 6 weeks. The diamond studs in her ears that definitely weren't there 3 months ago. Someone want to explain this, I said, tilting my head toward the fevered child in my arms. My father finally lowered his newspaper. Megan, let's all just calm down and discuss this like adults. Calm down. My voice cracked on the second word. He's burning up. He was in your basement, alone, eating cold pasta off the floor like a forgotten dog. He was fine an hour ago, my mother said quickly. Too quickly. The words tumbled out like she had rehearsed them. He must have just gotten worse. You know how fast children spike fevers. 1 minute they're playing, the next. He's wearing the same clothes he had on when I left. 3 months ago, Mom. The same shirt, the same pants. They don't even fit anymore. That's not true. I just bought him. Show me. I cut her off. Show me one thing you bought him. One toy. One piece of clothing. One single thing that proves you spent even $1 on my son. Silence filled the kitchen. The refrigerator hummed. The clock on the wall ticked. My father stared at his newspaper like it contained the secrets of the universe. My mother's composure finally crumbled at the edges. You're being ridiculous. You show up unannounced in the middle of the night and start making wild accusations. I heard you. My voice was ice, now cold and sharp and deadly. Before you knew I was here, I heard everything. The restaurant you went to tonight while my son lay sick in your basement. Madison's new dress from the boutique. The spa appointments you're planning with the money I sent for Ethan. Ashley's face went pale. She looked at my mother. My mother looked at the floor. My father looked at nothing at all. Ethan whimpered against my shoulder, his small body trembling. His forehead was still burning. He needed a doctor. He needed medicine. He needed to get out of this house and away from these people. I'm taking him to the hospital, I said. That's completely unnecessary, my mother started. I have children's Tylenol right here. It's not a discussion. I turned and walked toward the front door. Behind me, I heard Ashley's voice, sharp with indignation, and something that sounded almost like fear. You can't just come in here and act like we're criminals. We've been taking care of him for 3 months while you were off living your glamorous life in Singapore. I stopped, turned, looked at my sister with new eyes. Taking care of him, I repeated slowly. His room is a storage closet in the basement. His dinner was cold leftovers on a concrete floor. He told me you said I wasn't coming back, that I didn't want him anymore, that I had forgotten all about him. Kids exaggerate, Ashley said, but her voice wavered like a candle in the wind. He's 7 years old. He can't even spell exaggerate. I shifted my gaze to my mother. And you let him believe his own mother abandoned him, while you spent my money on princess dresses and spa treatments and boutique shopping sprees. I didn't wait for a response. There was nothing they could say that would matter. I walked out the front door and into the cold December night, my son clutched tight against my chest, leaving behind the only family I had ever known. The emergency room was a fluorescent nightmare of crying babies and coughing strangers, and the sharp smell of antiseptic. Even at midnight, the waiting room was crowded. I held Ethan while we waited for what felt like hours, his small body trembling against mine, his forehead burning through my shirt. He hadn't let go of my neck since we left my parents' house. Mommy, he whispered at one point, his voice hoarse and small. Are we going back there? I pressed my lips to his hair. No, baby, never. Promise? I promise. A nurse finally called us back. She was young with kind eyes and a gentle manner, and she took Ethan's temperature with a concerned frown. 103.4, she murmured, writing in her chart. How long has he had this fever? I don't know, I admitted, and the words tasted like failure on my tongue. I just got back tonight, From overseas. Has he been eating normally? Drinking fluids? I thought of the cold pasta congealing in the bowl on the basement floor, the half-empty cup of water beside his cot, the way his ribs showed through his too tight shirt when I changed him into a hospital gown. I don't think so. Any medications he's currently taking? I don't know. I was starting to hate those words. He was staying with my parents. I was working overseas. I sent money for everything he needed. The nurse's expression shifted. Professional concern mixed with something else, something that looked like suspicion. She wrote something in her chart that I couldn't see. The doctor came in 20 minutes later. She was older, maybe 60, with gray hair pulled back in a practical bun and reading glasses perched on the end of her nose. She examined Ethan thoroughly, gently, patiently asking him questions in a soft voice that seemed to put him at ease. "Can you tell me how you've been feeling, sweetheart?" Ethan looked at me first. I nodded, trying to keep my face calm. "Tired," he said quietly. "My tummy hurts sometimes, and I get cold a lot, even when everyone else says it's warm." The doctor nodded, writing notes. "Have you been eating your vegetables?" A ghost of a smile crossed Ethan's pale face. "Grandma doesn't make vegetables. She orders pizza, but I don't always get any." The doctor's pen stopped moving. She looked at me over her glasses with an expression I couldn't quite read. "When did you last see a doctor, Ethan?" He shrugged his thin shoulders. "I don't remember. Maybe when I had my birthday checkup, that was before Mommy went away." Before I went away. 4 months ago. Maybe 5. "We're going to run some tests," the doctor said, her voice professionally neutral. "He's dehydrated and appears to be undernourished. The fever is likely from a secondary infection. When children don't receive adequate nutrition over an extended period, their immune systems become compromised." Undernourished. The word hit me like a physical blow to the chest. "I sent money," I heard myself saying. "Every month, $5,000. For food, clothes, anything he needed, everything he needed." The doctor's expression remained carefully neutral, but I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition, maybe? Understanding of a story she had seen before? "I'm going to have a social worker come speak with you," she said. "Standard procedure in cases like this." Cases like this. My son had become a case. A statistic. Another child failed by the adults who were supposed to protect him. They admitted Ethan to a small room on the pediatric floor with pale blue walls and a television mounted in the corner playing some cartoon he was too exhausted to watch. He fell asleep almost immediately once the IV started working, his small body finally beginning to relax, the lines of pain smoothing from his face. I sat beside his bed and watched him breathe. In. Out. In. Out. The steady rhythm of my child, my reason for existing. My everything. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "We're on our way, so worried about our grandson. See you soon." I stared at the message, the sheer audacity of it, the performance continuing even now, even after everything. They arrived 45 minutes later, sweeping into the hospital like concerned relatives in a made-for-television movie. My mother rushed to Ethan's bedside, her hand pressed dramatically to her chest. "Oh, my poor baby," she cooed. "We had no idea he was this sick. If we had known..." The doctor, who had returned to check on Ethan's vitals, watched the interaction with sharp, assessing eyes. I watched her watch them. "He seemed perfectly fine when we left for dinner," my mother continued, turning to the doctor with wide, innocent eyes. "Children can turn so quickly, can't they? 1 minute they're playing, the next they're burning up." "They can," the doctor agreed, her voice giving nothing away. "Though the level of dehydration and weight loss we're seeing here suggests this has been developing over a longer period. Weeks at minimum, possibly months." My mother's smile tightened just a fraction. "Well, you know how picky children can be about eating. We tried everything." Ethan stirred in his sleep. His eyes fluttered open, saw my mother standing over him, and he flinched. Actually, physically flinched. He pulled away from her and reached for me with both arms, his IV tube stretching with the movement. "Mommy?" I took his hand in mine, bent down to kiss his forehead. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here. My mother's face hardened for just a second, a flash of something dark and ugly before the mask of concern slid back into place. But I saw it. The doctor saw it. And more importantly, Ethan saw it. Perhaps we should let him rest, the doctor said firmly. The waiting room is just down the hall. It wasn't a suggestion. The waiting room at 5 a.m. was empty except for us. Ashley claimed a chair in the far corner, scrolling through her phone with practiced disinterest. My father had stayed home with Madison, apparently, too tired to come see his hospitalized grandson, too comfortable in his silence to face what they had done. My mother sat across from me, her posture perfect, her expression carefully constructed from years of practice. I don't appreciate being treated like a criminal, she said. We've done nothing but sacrifice for that boy while you were off pursuing your career halfway around the world. Where did the money go? What money? $15,000, $5,000 a month for 3 months. I have the transfer records. I have the bank statements. Where did it go? Ashley looked up from her phone. My mother's jaw tightened. It went to his care, my mother said smoothly. Food, utilities, gas for driving him to school and back. Do you have any idea how expensive children are? He was eating cold leftovers in a basement closet. His clothes don't fit. There's nothing in that house that belongs to him except a cot and a lamp and a bowl of pasta nobody bothered to heat up. You're exaggerating. You always exaggerate. Madison has a princess bedroom with a canopy bed, new dresses every week, dance lessons and princess toys, and everything a 5-year-old could dream of. I leaned forward. Ethan has a storage closet with a concrete floor. Where did his money go? My mother straightened in her chair. Madison is younger. She has different needs. Madison is not my daughter. Ethan is my son, and you used his money to spoil her while he starved. Ashley finally spoke up from her corner. God, Megan, it's always about money with you, isn't it? Some of us don't have fancy international jobs. Some of us struggle. You struggle. I let out a laugh that had no humor in it. You're planning spa appointments with money meant for a 7-year-old's groceries. Your nails are done, your hair is highlighted, you're wearing designer clothes to a hospital at 5 a.m. Her face flushed red. How did you? I heard you, tonight, before you knew I was there. You were planning your next spa day while my son lay sick in a basement. She looked at my mother. My mother looked at the linoleum floor. We did the best we could, my mother finally said, her voice smaller now. You have no idea how hard it's been. Hard? I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. You want to talk about hard. My 7-year-old son thought I abandoned him. He thought I forgot about him. He was eating scraps and sleeping in a storage closet while you went out to restaurants and bought princess dresses. That's hard, Mom. That's what hard looks like. I stepped outside for air around 4 a.m, my body exhausted, but my mind racing too fast for sleep. The hospital parking lot was mostly empty, the December cold biting at my cheeks and turning my breath into clouds of white. I pulled out my phone, planning to check my email or do something normal for just 1 minute. Anything to feel like myself again. That's when I saw the notification. Ring. Motion detected at front door. I stared at it for a long moment, not understanding, and then it hit me. The camera. I had installed a Ring doorbell 2 years ago, right after the divorce, when I was paranoid about my ex-husband showing up unannounced. It was a small thing, just a camera that recorded everyone who came and went. When I left for Singapore, I had told my parents they could use it to watch for package deliveries. But Ring saves everything. Every motion. Every visitor. Every time the front door opens or closes. I opened the app with trembling fingers, scrolled through the history. And there it was. 3 months of footage neatly organized by date and time. Every time someone entered or left my parents' house. Every time they went out to dinner while Ethan lay sick in the basement. Every time they came home loaded with shopping bags while texting me that he was doing great. Every lie, every neglect, every single moment they chose Madison over my son. It was all there. Saved in the cloud, waiting for someone to look. Ashley walked past me on her way to her car, not even stopping to say goodbye to her hospitalized nephew. "I hope you're happy," she said coldly. "You've ruined everyone's night with your dramatic bullshit." I didn't respond. I was too busy thinking about what that camera had recorded, about what I could prove. She drove away without looking back, and I stood alone in the cold watching her taillights disappear into the darkness. For the first time since I walked into that basement and found my son crying in the dark, I felt something other than rage and despair. I felt hope, and something else. A plan beginning to form. I went back inside to check on Ethan. He was still sleeping, his breathing easier now, some color returning to his cheeks as the IV fluids did their work. I stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching him. My boy. My reason for everything. Then I heard voices. My mother and Ashley around the corner in the hallway near the elevators. They must have thought I was still outside in the parking lot. I pressed myself against the wall hidden by a supply cart and listened. "She's going to ruin everything," Ashley hissed. "You know that, right? She's not going to let this go. Keep your voice down. What are we going to do? She knows about the money. She's going to cause problems. She might even call the police." My mother sighed heavily. She was supposed to stay in Singapore for another 3 months. We had time to figure things out, to get our story straight. Well, she didn't stay. She's here now, and she's asking questions we can't answer. A long pause. The sound of the elevator dinging somewhere in the distance. Then Ashley again, her voice lower, more urgent. "What about the paperwork? What if she finds it? What about it? It's filed. It's official. But if she looks too closely..." My mother's voice went cold, colder than I had ever heard it in my entire life. "Let her look. Let her try to fight us. We have documentation now, Ashley. Legal documentation. She abandoned him, remember? She signed the papers herself. If she wants to make this into a battle, she's going to lose. We made sure of that." I stopped breathing. Papers. What papers? I never signed anything. I never signed a single document about Ethan. Not custody papers, not guardianship forms, not power of attorney, nothing. But according to my mother, I had. I stood frozen in that hospital hallway, my hands shaking so badly I had to press them against the wall for support. My son was asleep in a hospital bed because of their neglect. They had stolen $15,000 meant for his care. They had let him believe I abandoned him. And now I was learning that somewhere, somehow, there were papers, legal documentation, something with my signature on it that I had never seen, never agreed to, never signed. This wasn't just about money anymore. They weren't just stealing my money. They were trying to steal my son, and they had been planning it from the beginning. I drove through the empty streets as the sun began to rise, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. She signed the papers. The words echoed in my head like a drumbeat. Papers I never signed. Papers that supposedly gave my parents custody of my son. Papers that meant this was never about helping me. It was about taking him. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Ethan was curled up in the back seat, finally asleep, his small body wrapped in the hospital blanket the nurses had let us keep. His face was peaceful now, the fever medicine doing its work, but I could still see the shadows under his eyes. 3 months of shadows. His backpack sat beside him, the one he had clutched when I carried him out of that basement. I had grabbed it without thinking along with his few belongings. Now I was grateful for that instinct. I pulled into the parking lot of a budget hotel off the highway. The kind of place that took credit cards at 5 in the morning and didn't ask questions. The woman at the front desk barely looked up as she handed me a key card. "Room 214. Checkout is at 11. I'll need it for longer than that." She shrugged and charged my card for 3 nights. The room was small and smelled like industrial cleaner, but it was clean. I laid Ethan on one of the double beds, tucking the blanket around him. He stirred, his eyes fluttering open. "Mommy, where are we?" "Somewhere safe, baby. Go back to sleep." "Are we going back to Grandma's house?" I brushed the hair from his forehead. "No, we're not going back there. Ever." He nodded, already drifting off again. "Okay. I didn't like it there anyway." My heart cracked a little more. I sat on the edge of the other bed and opened his backpack. Inside, crumpled and worn, were the drawings. All of them. Every picture he had made in that dark little room while I was thousands of miles away, believing he was happy and loved. I pulled them out, carefully setting them aside. Evidence. That's what they were now. Evidence of what my family had done to my child. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in the dim hotel room watching my son breathe, and I planned. By 9 a.m, Ethan was awake and hungry. I ordered room service, something I had never done in my life, and watched him devour scrambled eggs and toast like he hadn't eaten a real meal in months. Because he probably hadn't. While he watched cartoons on the ancient television, I pulled out my laptop and logged into my bank account. I needed to see it for myself. All those transfers, all that money I had sent to take care of my son. $5,000 in September, $5,000 in October, $5,000 in November. $15,000 total sent to an account I had set up specifically for Ethan's expenses, an account my mother had access to. I clicked on the transaction history, expecting to see grocery stores, pediatrician visits, maybe some clothes shopping. Instead, I saw one name repeated over and over again. ADH Boutique LLC. I stared at it. ADH. The initials didn't register at first. Then it hit me like a truck. Ashley Davis Harper, my sister's vanity business. The essential oils and wellness products pyramid scheme she had been pushing on social media for the past 2 years. The boutique that had never made a profit that she kept funding with money she didn't have. Every single transfer, every cent I had sent for my son's food, his clothes, his care. It had all gone directly to Ashley's failing business. I clicked through to Ashley's Instagram page. I hadn't looked at it in months. I had been too busy working overtime, too focused on providing for my son, too trusting of the family I thought would protect him. The posts told a story so different from the one my mother had been feeding me that I felt physically sick. I scrolled through 3 months of carefully curated content. 3 months of lies documented in high-definition photographs. September 15th. Ashley at a spa retreat. Self-care Sunday. Treating myself because I deserve it. September 28th. Ashley at a boutique, shopping bags in hand. Fall wardrobe refresh, link in bio for my favorite finds. October 10th. Ashley and Madison at a pumpkin patch matching designer outfits. Making memories with my mini-me. October 31st. Ashley's living room decorated for a lavish Halloween party. When you throw the party of the year, so blessed. November 15th. Ashley announcing a business trip to Miami. Photos of beaches, cocktails, a luxury hotel. All while Ethan sat in a storage closet eating cold pasta. All funded by money I had sent for his care. I screenshotted everything. Every post, every photo, every timestamp that proved my sister had been living her best life on my son's dime while he withered away in a basement. "Mommy," Ethan's voice broke through my rage. "Why are you crying?" I hadn't realized I was. I wiped my face quickly. "I'm okay, baby. Just thinking about grown-up stuff." "Is it because of Aunt Ashley?" I looked at him. "Why do you ask that?" He shrugged, turning back to his cartoons. "She always made Grandma happy, not me. 7 years old. And he already understood the family hierarchy better than I had at 34. My phone rang at 10:30. A familiar name on the screen, Marcus Chen. I hesitated before answering. Marcus was my coworker from the Singapore office. He had helped me get the overseas position in the first place, had been nothing but supportive during my time there. But I wasn't ready to explain this mess to anyone. I answered anyway. "Hello. Megan. Finally. I've been trying to reach you since yesterday. Are you okay? The office said you left suddenly, some kind of family emergency." His voice was warm, concerned. The kind of genuine concern I hadn't heard from my own family in years. "I'm dealing with some things." "I can tell. You sound like you haven't slept in a week." He paused. "I know we're just coworkers, but I've worked with you for 2 years. I know when something's wrong. And right now, something is very wrong." I almost laughed. That's an understatement. "Talk to me. What happened?" I don't know why I told him. Maybe because he was the first person to actually ask. Maybe because I was too exhausted to keep it inside anymore. Maybe because he wasn't connected to my family, couldn't be manipulated by them, had no stake in their lies. I told him everything. The basement, the money, the forged papers I had overheard them discussing, the evidence I had found this morning. When I finished, there was a long silence. "Megan," he said finally, "I'm actually back in the States. Got in yesterday for the holidays. I'm about 3 hours from where you grew up." "Oh." "I work in IT. Data analysis, digital forensics, that kind of thing. If there's a paper trail, I can find it. If they've been hiding money, moving assets, forging documents, I can trace it." "Marcus, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering." His voice was firm. "You helped me when I was going through my divorce last year. Remember? Covered my shifts, never asked questions, just showed up when I needed someone. Let me return the favor." I closed my eyes. My whole life I had been the helper, the giver, the one who sacrificed so others could take. Accepting help felt foreign, wrong even. But maybe that was the problem. "Okay," I said quietly. "Thank you. Send me everything you have. Bank records, screenshots, anything. I'll start digging today." I hung up and sat there for a long moment staring at my phone. For 34 years I had been taught that asking for help was weakness, that needing support meant you were a burden, that the only way to be loved was to be useful. Marcus didn't want anything from me. He just wanted to help. The concept felt so foreign that I didn't quite know how to process it. Maybe that was the first lie my family ever told me, that love always came with conditions. The law office of Diane Torres was located in a modest building downtown, squeezed between a dry cleaner and a tax preparation service. Not the kind of place that screamed high-powered attorney. But the reviews online had been clear. Diane Torres fights for mothers. She doesn't back down. I left Ethan with the receptionist, a kind older woman who immediately offered him crayons and paper. He seemed relieved to be somewhere that wasn't a hospital or a hotel room. Diane's office was small, but organized, every surface covered with files and legal books. She was in her mid-40s, with sharp eyes behind practical glasses and silver streaking through her dark hair. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. "Ms. Anderson, tell me everything." So I did. Again. The overseas job, the money, the basement, the hospital, the forged papers. When I finished, I slid the folder across her desk. Bank statements, screenshots, medical records from the ER, Ethan's drawings. She went through each document slowly, her expression growing harder with every page. "The medical records show malnutrition and dehydration consistent with neglect over an extended period," she said. "The bank records show clear misappropriation of funds. The text messages show deliberate deception about your son's welfare." She picked up one of Ethan's drawings. A small boy in a dark room, a woman yelling, the words "Stop being bad" scrawled in crayon. "And these are devastating." "What are my options?" "Several. We can file for emergency custody based on documented neglect. We can pursue civil action for the stolen funds. And depending on what we find about those forged documents..." She looked up at me. "That's criminal. Forgery, fraud, potentially conspiracy." "I never signed any custody papers. I would remember that." "Then someone forged your signature, which means someone in your family committed a felony." She leaned back in her chair. "Ms. Anderson, based on what you've shown me, you don't just have a custody case. You have evidence of financial fraud and potentially child endangerment. The question is, how far are you willing to go?" I thought about Ethan in that basement, his ribs showing through his shirt, the cold pasta on the floor, the drawings of a little boy nobody loved. "All the way," I said. "I'm willing to go all the way." Diane smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had just found a fight worth having. "Good. Then let's get started." She pulled out a legal pad and began taking notes. "First, we file for emergency custody. Given the medical documentation, we have grounds. Second, we get a forensic accountant to trace every dollar. Third, we subpoena any documents related to custody or guardianship. If there are forged papers out there, we'll find them." I nodded, feeling overwhelmed but grateful. For the first time, someone was fighting on my side. "One more thing," Diane added, looking up from her notes. "Your family is going to fight back. They're going to lie, manipulate, and try to make you look like the bad guy. That's what people like this do. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about my mother's smile when she thought no one was watching, the coldness beneath the warmth she showed the world. "I've been preparing for that my whole life," I said. "I just didn't know it." By 4 o'clock, my phone had accumulated 37 missed calls and over 50 text messages, all from my mother, all ignored. When she called for the 38th time, I finally answered. "Megan? Thank God. Where are you? Where is Ethan? Your father is worried sick. We've been calling the hospitals. We thought something happened to you." "Something did happen to me," I said calmly. "I came home to find my son sick and abandoned in your basement." "He wasn't abandoned. He was resting. He had a little cold. We were taking care of him." "Mom, stop." The single word cut through her performance. I heard Ashley's voice in the background, sharp and demanding. "What is she saying? Is she threatening us?" "Megan, you're overreacting." My mother continued, her voice shifting to a more conciliatory tone. "Come home. Let's talk about this like adults. Your father wants to speak with you. Dad can't even look at me when I'm in the room. He's not going to suddenly have opinions now. That's not fair. Tell me something, Mom. Where did the money go?" Silence. $15,000. $5,000 a month for 3 months. I have the transfer records. I have the bank statements. I know exactly where every cent went. More silence. Then Ashley's voice, closer now, like she had grabbed the phone. "Tell her Derek says she's being crazy. She's going to embarrass the whole family with this drama." Derek, Ashley's husband, the quiet one who always seemed to be somewhere else when decisions were made. I filed that name away for later. "Mom," I said, ignoring Ashley. "You have until tomorrow to come up with a very good explanation for why my son's money funded Ashley's pyramid scheme while he starved in your basement. Or the next call you get will be from my lawyer." I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from something else entirely. For the first time in my life, I had the power, and they knew it. That evening, I sat on the floor of the hotel room with Ethan going through his drawings one by one. He was hesitant at first, like he was afraid he would get in trouble for what he had created. I had to reassure him 3 times that I wasn't mad, that he had done nothing wrong, that these pictures were important, and I needed to understand them. "This one," he said, holding up a crayon drawing of a house with 2 windows. "This is Grandma's house. See, Madison's room has the big window with the sun. My room doesn't have any windows." Because it was a storage closet. Because they had given a 5-year-old guest the real bedroom while my son slept in a converted basement space. "What about this one?" He looked at the drawing in my hands. 2 people at a table. One plate was large, piled with food. The other was small, nearly empty. "That's dinner," he said simply. "Madison always got more because she's littler. Grandma said little kids need more food." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from screaming. "And this?" The drawing showed a woman with an angry face, mouth open wide. A small figure cowered in the corner. The words, "Stop being bad," were written above. "That's when I asked to call you," Ethan whispered. "Grandma got really mad. She said I was being bad. She said you didn't want to talk to me because I was being difficult." "Baby." I pulled him into my arms. "That was never true. I always wanted to talk to you. I called every single day." "Grandma said you were too busy." "She lied. I called and she told me you were sleeping or playing or didn't want to talk. She lied to both of us." Ethan looked up at me with those big eyes so much older than they should have been. Why would Grandma lie? I didn't have an answer for that. How do you explain to a 7-year-old that some people don't know how to love? That some families break instead of bend? "I don't know, baby," I said honestly. "But I promise you this, I will never lie to you. And I will never, ever leave you again." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Mommy, are you mad at me for the drawings?" "No, baby. Never." I held him tighter. "These drawings are the bravest thing you've ever done. They told me the truth when no one else would." After Ethan fell asleep, I sat in the darkness of the hotel room and looked at everything spread out before me. Bank records showing every dollar stolen by my sister. Screenshots of Ashley's social media documenting her lavish lifestyle funded by my son's suffering. Medical records proving Ethan's neglect. Text messages full of lies about how happy and healthy he was. Drawings that showed the reality of his life in that house. I thought about my mother's voice on the phone. The way she had cycled through guilt denial and finally anger. The way she still thought she could manipulate me into backing down. I thought about Ashley calling me crazy, invoking her husband's name like it meant something. I thought about my father, silent as always, complicit in his cowardice. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Found some interesting financial records. Your sister has been busy. Call me tomorrow. I stared at the message. Then I looked at my son, peaceful in sleep for the first time in months. Blood doesn't make you family. Loyalty does. Love does. Sacrifice does. I had spent my whole life trying to earn a place in a family that never wanted me. I had given them my money, my time, my self-respect. I had given them my son. No more. Tomorrow, I would begin dismantling everything they had built on my back. Every lie, every manipulation, every stolen dollar and broken promise. They thought I was still the quiet girl who would do anything to be loved. They were about to meet the woman who had finally stopped asking for permission. I woke to the sound of Ethan laughing. It took me a moment to remember where I was. The hotel room, the scratchy sheets, the hum of the air conditioner. But then, I heard it again, that pure, joyful sound I hadn't heard in months, and nothing else mattered. He was sitting up in bed watching cartoons on my phone, a half-eaten apple in his hand. His cheeks had color again. His eyes were bright. He looked like my son, not the ghost I had found in that basement. "Morning, Mommy," he grinned at me. "Can we have pancakes?" "We can have whatever you want, baby." I ordered room service while I reviewed my notes from yesterday, the bank records, the legal strategy, the evidence we still needed. Today would be busy. Marcus was meeting me this morning with his findings, and I had decided to visit someone I should have seen months ago. "Mommy?" Ethan looked up from his cartoons. "Can we visit Great-Grandma Grace today?" I paused. "Why do you ask?" "I miss her. She always gave me cookies. Real cookies, not the broken ones." He picked at his apple. "Grandma Linda said Great-Grandma was too sick for visitors, but I heard her tell Aunt Ashley that Great-Grandma was being difficult and needed to learn her place." I felt a chill run down my spine. My grandmother-in-law. The woman who had always been kind to me even when the rest of the family treated me like an afterthought. I hadn't spoken to her in months. Every time I called, my mother said Grace was sleeping, or at a doctor's appointment, or didn't feel like talking. What if those had been lies too? "Yes, baby," I said. "We're going to visit Great-Grandma Grace today." Marcus was already waiting when we arrived at the coffee shop. He had claimed a corner booth laptop open, papers spread across the table. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept much either. "Hey, buddy." He smiled at Ethan, pulling out a coloring book and crayons from his bag. "I brought you something. Why don't you color at that table right there while your mom and I talk boring grown-up stuff?" Ethan's eyes lit up. "Thanks, Mr. Marcus." Once Ethan was settled at the adjacent table, Marcus turned his laptop toward me. His expression was grim. "I've been digging all night," he said quietly. "And honestly, it's worse than I thought." He walked me through his findings. Ashley's business wasn't just a failed MLM scheme. It was a network of shell accounts, each one funneling money to different places. Luxury retailers, travel agencies, a car dealership. None of it had anything to do with essential oils or wellness products. "She wasn't even trying to run a real business," I said. "No, it was always a front. A way to hide where the money was really going." Marcus pulled up another screen. "But here's what really bothers me. Someone ran credit checks on you 6 months ago. Multiple inquiries from different financial institutions. 6 months ago, I hadn't even taken the overseas job yet." "Exactly." His eyes met mine. "Megan, this wasn't opportunistic. They didn't just see a chance and take it. They planned this. Someone was checking your credit, your assets, your financial situation months before you ever left the country." I sat back feeling sick. They were sizing me up like a mark. "That's what it looks like." He hesitated. "There's one more thing. Do you have any security systems at your parents' house? Cameras, doorbells, anything like that?" "I installed a Ring doorbell 2 years ago, for safety after the divorce." My heart started pounding. I completely forgot about it. The footage stores in the cloud. Marcus's eyes widened. Give me your login credentials. If there's 3 months of footage in there, that could be everything we need." I pulled up the app on my phone and handed it over. Marcus began typing rapidly. "I'll download everything tonight," he said. "If they neglected Ethan, if they said things they shouldn't have, it'll all be there." I watched him work this man who had dropped everything to help me, who had driven 3 hours and stayed up all night because I asked. "Marcus," I said quietly, "why are you doing all this?" He looked up surprised. "Because you needed help." "But we're just coworkers." Something shifted in his expression, something warm. "We haven't been just coworkers for a while now, Megan. At least not to me." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. But I didn't look away either. The drive to Sunny Acres Assisted Living took 45 minutes. Ethan fell asleep in the back seat, and I used the quiet to think about everything Marcus had found. They had planned this. My mother, my sister, probably my father too. They had looked at my finances, calculated what I was worth, and created a scheme to drain me dry. And they had used my son as the bait. The facility was nicer than I expected. Manicured lawns, a cheerful receptionist, the kind of place that cost money. I wondered who was paying for it. Probably my father's retirement accounts. Or maybe money that should have gone to Ethan. "I'm here to see Grace Davis," I told the receptionist. "Oh, Mrs. Davis will be so happy." The woman's face lit up. "She doesn't get many visitors. Her daughter-in-law comes once a month maybe, but that's about it." Once a month. My mother had told me she visited Grace every week. We found Grace in her room sitting by the window in a wheelchair looking out at the garden. She was smaller than I remembered, more fragile, but when she turned and saw me, her eyes were sharp as ever. "Megan," her voice cracked. Then she saw Ethan, and tears began streaming down her face. "Oh, my sweet boy, come here." Ethan ran to her and she wrapped her thin arms around him, sobbing. I had never seen Grace cry before. In all the years I had known her, she had been the steady one, the unshakable matriarch. "I thought they'd gotten to you too," she whispered, looking up at me. "I thought I'd lost you both." I knelt beside her chair, my heart breaking at the relief in her eyes. This woman had been alone, waiting, hoping. "What do you mean, gotten to me?" Grace wiped her eyes with a trembling hand. "Your mother. She's been keeping us apart. Every letter I sent you was returned unopened. Every phone call was screened or redirected. She told me you didn't want to see me anymore, that you blamed me for your divorce, that you said I was a meddling old woman who should mind her own business. I never said any of those things. I never blamed you for anything. And I never got any letters. I know that now. I suspected for years, but I couldn't prove it." She squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "I've been watching Megan. From this room with nothing but time and a mind that still works. I've been documenting everything. Your mother's lies, the money she's been moving around, the way she's systematically isolated everyone who might help you. She did it to me first, then to your father's brother who tried to warn you before the wedding, then to your old college roommate who called the house once. Anyone who might tell you the truth." She gestured toward her dresser. "Top drawer, the key." I found a small silver key hidden beneath her socks. "What is this?" "Safety deposit box at First National. I opened it 20 years ago when I first realized what your mother was. Everything you need is in there. Financial records, intercepted letters, recordings I made when they thought I was too senile to understand." Her eyes hardened. "I've been building a case against that woman for 2 decades. I just didn't know who would be strong enough to use it." I stared at the key in my hand. "Why didn't you tell someone, go to the police?" "With what, the ramblings of a crazy old woman against the word of an upstanding church volunteer and devoted grandmother?" Grace laughed bitterly. "No one would have believed me, but they'll believe you. You have fresh evidence, and now you have mine." We stayed with Grace for 2 more hours. Ethan played with the basket of toys she had kept in her room, toys she had saved, hoping for this visit, while Grace told me the truth about my family. "Your mother was the scapegoat in her family," Grace said quietly. "Her own mother favored her sister terribly. It broke something in Linda. She swore she would never do that to her children." She shook her head. "But damaged people don't break cycles. They create new ones." So she made Ashley the golden child instead of herself. She made Ashley into the person she wished she had been, the favorite, the special one. And you became what she was, the servant, the invisible one, the child who could never do enough to be loved. I thought about all the years I had tried, all the sacrifices, all the times I had put my family first, believing that eventually they would see my worth. What about my father? Grace sighed. Your father isn't evil, Megan. He's weak. There's a difference, but the result is the same. He sees what your mother does and he looks away. He's been looking away for 40 years. So he won't help me. He might if his own survival depends on it. Weak people are predictable that way. She leaned forward. But don't count on him. Build your case without him. If he comes around, consider it a bonus. I nodded, filing that away. Another hope to let go of. There's one more thing, Grace said. I've changed my will. Your mother doesn't know yet. When I die, everything goes to you and Ethan. The house, the savings, all of it. I made sure a copy is in the safety deposit box along with a letter explaining why. Grace, you don't have to. I'm 84 years old, she interrupted. I won't live to see justice done, but I can make sure you have the resources to fight for it. She took my hand. Promise me you'll finish what I started. Promise me you'll make them answer for what they've done. I looked into her eyes, this woman who had watched my family's cruelty for decades and never stopped fighting even when no one listened. I promise. On the drive back, Diane called. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Your mother has been busy, very busy. She's been calling everyone she knows. Church friends, neighbors, the PTA, your extended family, even some of your high school teachers. She's spreading a story that you had a mental breakdown overseas and came back unstable, that you kidnapped Ethan in the middle of the night, like some kind of disturbed parent. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, checking the rearview mirror. Ethan was still asleep, thankfully. And people are believing her. Some of them. Your mother has spent 30 years building her reputation. Devoted grandmother, church volunteer, pillar of the community. She brings casseroles to sick neighbors and organizes charity drives. Diane's voice was flat with professional frustration. Meanwhile, you've been overseas out of sight sending money from a distance. To most people, that makes you look like the absent parent, not the victim. But the evidence doesn't matter if public opinion is already against you. We need to get ahead of this narrative. Diane paused. The good news is the emergency custody hearing is scheduled for next Thursday, 7 days from now. If we can present strong evidence of neglect and fraud, we can counter her story. What do we need? Documentation of ongoing neglect. Pattern of behavior, not just one bad night. Medical records help, but they'll claim it was an isolated incident. We need more. I thought about the Ring doorbell. 3 months of footage. What if I had video evidence, continuous footage of how Ethan was treated while I was away? Diane was quiet for a moment. If you have that, everything changes. Video evidence is almost impossible to dispute. Can you get it to me? I'll have it tomorrow. That night, after Ethan was asleep, I sat in the dim hotel room going through the papers Grace had given me. Names, dates, amounts. A web of manipulations spanning decades. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my first instinct to ignore it. I had gotten dozens of calls and texts from my family over the past 2 days, all ignored. But something made me open this message. I know what your family did to you. I have proof. Meet me tomorrow. Come alone. My heart hammered in my chest. Who could this be? The words were vague but specific, not threatening exactly, but not friendly either. I thought about Derek, Ashley's husband. The quiet one who always seemed uncomfortable at family gatherings, who never quite met my eyes when I visited, who had been mentioned on that phone call with my mother, his name invoked like a weapon. Derek had always struck me as someone who got swept up in Ashley's current, unable to resist. He worked long hours, spent most family events on his phone or in another room. I had always assumed he was checked out. But what if he had been paying attention? What if he had seen things he wasn't supposed to see? Could he be having second thoughts? Could he be turning against my sister? Or was this a trap set by my family to catch me doing something they could use against me? I typed a response. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Then, someone who wants to help. Starbucks on Main 10 in the morning. You'll know me when you see me. I screenshotted the conversation and saved it. Trust no one. Verify everything. An hour later, Marcus called on video. I've got the ring footage, he said. His face on the screen looked grim. Megan, I need to warn you. What's on here? It's bad. I can handle it. I know you can, but it's still going to hurt. He shared his screen and began playing clips. Timestamps from September, October, November. 3 months of my son's life captured in fragments. I watched my mother smile for a video call with me, then immediately scowl at Ethan the moment the call ended. I watched Ashley's daughter Madison eat a full meal while Ethan got scraps. I watched my son sit alone in that dark storage room while laughter echoed from upstairs. But that wasn't the worst part. There's a conversation from October, Marcus said. Your mother and sister. They're in the kitchen. They don't know the doorbell is recording. He played the clip. My mother's voice. She'll never notice. She's too busy trying to prove she's a good mother from the other side of the world. Ashley's voice laughing. She signs whatever we put in front of her. Always has. The custody paperwork was almost too easy. My mother. The lawyer said the documents will hold up in court, as long as she never contests them. Ashley. Why would she? She doesn't even know they exist. More laughter. My mother and sister laughing about stealing my son. Marcus stopped the video. His expression was tight with controlled anger. There's more. Hours of it. But I thought you should see this first. I sat in the darkness of the hotel room, my phone clutched in my hand, my whole body shaking. I had suspected. I had gathered evidence. I had prepared myself for the truth. But hearing it, hearing my own mother's voice laughing about how easy it was to deceive me, hearing my sister joke about forging documents to steal my child, that was something else entirely. Megan. Marcus's voice was gentle through the phone speaker. Are you okay? I looked at the screen, at his concerned face illuminated by the glow of his laptop, at this man who had spent days helping me uncover the truth about my own family, who had asked for nothing in return, who had simply shown up because I needed someone. No, I said. I'm not okay, but I will be. I thought about Grace alone in her room, waiting decades for someone to believe her. About Ethan asleep in the bed behind me, finally safe. About the mysterious stranger who wanted to meet me tomorrow. About the custody hearing in 7 days. Marcus, can you compile everything? The financial records, the footage, all of it. I want a complete file ready for Diane by tomorrow night. Already working on it. I'll have everything organized by category and date. The video evidence alone is over 40 hours. 40 hours? The ring records every motion event. Every time someone walked past, every time the door opened, every conversation in the hallway. He paused. There's a lot, Megan. A lot of evidence of how they treated Ethan, and a lot of evidence of what they were planning. I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Good. Because next Thursday we're going to walk into that courtroom and destroy every lie they've ever told. I'll be there. Whatever you need. I ended the call and sat in the darkness listening to my son breathe. I had thought I knew the scope of their betrayal. I had thought I understood how far my family would go. But hearing them laugh about it, hearing the casual cruelty in their voices, that changed something inside me. They thought this was a game. They thought they had already won. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. The Starbucks on Main Street was crowded with the morning rush, which was exactly why I had chosen it. Public place, plenty of witnesses, easy exits. I sat in a corner booth nursing a coffee I couldn't taste, my eyes scanning every face that walked through the door, looking for Derek. Tall, sandy-haired Derek with his nervous eyes and his habit of checking his phone every 30 seconds. The door opened. A woman walked in. Mid-30s, professional blazer over jeans, dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She looked around the room, spotted me, and headed straight for my table. Not Derek, definitely not Derek. Megan Anderson. She slid into the seat across from me without waiting for an invitation. You can relax. I'm not here to hurt you. Quite the opposite, actually. Who are you? My name is Karen Mitchell. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. Ashley's face beamed from the screen, standing next to Karen at what looked like a business launch party. I used to be your sister's business partner, before she stole $20,000 from me and disappeared. I stared at the photo. You're the mystery texter. I know. Very dramatic. Karen flagged down a barista and ordered a black coffee. But I had to make sure you were serious before I approached you. I've been watching your family for months, gathering evidence for my own lawsuit against Ashley. When I saw the news coverage of your mother's press conference yesterday calling you unstable and dangerous, she laughed bitterly. I knew exactly what they were doing, because they did the same thing to me. My mother held a press conference. This morning, Channel 7, tearful grandmother begging the community to help find her kidnapped grandson. Karen's expression hardened. It was a masterpiece of manipulation. Your mother missed her calling. She should have been an actress. I felt sick. While I had been gathering evidence, my mother had been waging a public relations war. What do you want from me? I asked. An alliance. I have financial records, emails, recorded phone conversations with Ashley from when she was convincing me to invest in her business. Evidence that proves she's a con artist who targets vulnerable people. Karen leaned forward. Your sister didn't just steal from me, Megan. She destroyed my credit, my reputation, and my marriage. My husband left me because he thought I had been irresponsible with our savings. She did that. She smiled to my face while she did that. You have evidence of what she did to your son, Karen continued. Together, we have enough to bury her, and I want to watch it happen. I studied the woman across from me. Her eyes were clear, her posture confident. She had the look of someone who had been knocked down and gotten back up, angry. Why help me? Why not just pursue your own case? Because alone, I'm just a disgruntled former business partner. But if we can prove a pattern of fraud, manipulation, and cruelty, Karen smiled. That's a criminal case. And I want your sister to know what it feels like to lose everything. I understood that feeling. I understood it very well. Okay, I said. Let's talk. The First National Bank was quiet in the early afternoon. I approached the safety deposit desk with Grace's key in my hand, my heart pounding. I need to access box 743, I told the clerk. Grace Davis is my grandmother-in-law. She gave me authorization. The clerk checked the records, verified my ID against the access list Grace had set up, and led me to the vault. The box was larger than I expected. When I opened it, I understood why. 20 years of patience stared back at me. There were manila envelopes thick with documents, smaller envelopes containing photographs, a USB drive with a note taped to it, recordings, handle with care, and at the very bottom, a sealed letter with my name written in Grace's careful handwriting, read when the time is right. I started with the manila envelopes, financial records showing money my mother had borrowed from Grace over the years. Tens of thousands of dollars never repaid. Bank statements that didn't match what Linda had claimed about managing Grace's finances. Then the letters. Dozens of them. Letters Grace had written to me over the years returned unopened. Birthday cards, holiday greetings, notes of concern after my divorce. All of them returned marked, recipient moved no forwarding address. My mother had intercepted every single one. I sat in that small private room surrounded by 20 years of evidence and I cried. Not from sadness, from grief. Grief for all the moments stolen from me, all the connections severed, all the love that never reached me because one woman decided I didn't deserve it. There were also letters Grace had intercepted herself. Letters Linda had sent to Grace's bank trying to gain access to her accounts. Letters to Grace's doctor requesting medical information under false pretenses. A forged power of attorney that Grace had caught before it could be filed with a note attached. She tried to steal everything. I stopped her, but I couldn't stop her from stealing you. My mother hadn't just been stealing from me. She had been trying to steal from her own mother-in-law for decades. The photographs were harder to look at. Pictures of family events I had never been invited to. Holidays celebrated without me. Ethan at birthday parties I didn't know existed. My mother had created an entire alternate family life, one where I simply didn't exist unless I was needed to provide something. I put everything back in the box, then transferred it all to my bag. Everything except the sealed letter. That I tucked into my jacket pocket close to my heart. Grace had been fighting this battle alone for 20 years. Now she had an army. By evening, our hotel room had transformed into a war room. Papers covered every surface. Marcus had set up 2 laptops, one running the video footage, the other organizing documents into categorized folders. Ethan was asleep in the adjoining room, exhausted from a day of cartoons and room service. "Okay," Marcus said, pulling up a spreadsheet. "Let's see what we've got." We went through everything systematically. The bank records I had gathered now cross-referenced with Karen's financial evidence. Ashley's social media posts time-stamped against the money transfers, proving she had been on vacation while claiming to care for Ethan. The medical records from the emergency room documenting malnutrition and dehydration. And Ethan's drawings. I had scanned each one, dated them based on the paper and crayons he had access to, and annotated them with his own explanations. A small boy's testimony in crayon and construction paper. "This is enough to bury them 10 times over," Marcus said quietly. "The question is, what do you want to do with it?" "I want my son back," I said. "Legally, permanently, with no chance of them ever taking him again. And after that," I looked at the wall of evidence. 20 years of Grace's patience, 3 months of my son's suffering, a lifetime of being treated like I was worth less than nothing. After that, I want them to understand what they did. I want them to feel what it's like to have everything taken away. Marcus nodded slowly. Then he reached over and took my hand. "Whatever happens," he said, "you're not alone in this anymore." I looked at our intertwined fingers, felt the warmth of human contact that expected nothing in return, thought about how long it had been since someone had touched me with kindness instead of obligation. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything." He squeezed my hand. "We're just getting started." The next morning, Diane called with news. "Your mother's press conference is backfiring," she said, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. "She overplayed her hand. People are asking questions. Why would a devoted grandmother need to go to the media? Why not just call the police? What kind of questions? One of her church friends called my office this morning. Apparently your mother asked her to lie about seeing you acting erratically at the grocery store last month." Diane chuckled. "The woman refused, said something about bearing false witness being a sin." Small victories. I would take them. "There's more," Diane continued. "Someone filed an anonymous complaint with Adult Protective Services about your grandmother-in-law's living situation. They're investigating whether she's been isolated from family contact." I thought about Karen. She had mentioned she was thorough. And the custody hearing. Still scheduled for Thursday, but I've requested a continuance based on new evidence. If granted, we'll have another week to prepare. She paused. "The judge is intrigued. He's seen too many of these cases to dismiss a request like mine out of hand." I hung up and met Karen at a diner downtown to share the update. She had news of her own. "Ashley was served with my lawsuit this morning," Karen said, grinning over her coffee. Her face when she opened that envelope was worth every penny I've spent on lawyers. "How do you know what her face looked like?" "I had a friend watching. Some moments are worth documenting." Karen stirred her coffee. "She's going to be fighting on 2 fronts now. Your custody case and my civil suit. Let's see how she handles the pressure." I thought about Ashley, my little sister who had always gotten everything she wanted, who had never had to face consequences for anything. "She won't handle it well," I said. "She never had to learn how." That afternoon, my father called. I stared at his name on my screen for a long moment. He had never called me directly, not once in my entire adult life. My mother had always been the intermediary, the gatekeeper, the voice of the family. I answered cautiously. "Dad?" "Megan." His voice was tired, older than I remembered. "Your mother doesn't know I'm calling." "Okay." Long pause. I could hear him breathing, gathering courage he had spent 60 years avoiding. "I want to help," he finally said. "I want to make things right. There are things you should know, things that happened that your mother doesn't want anyone to find out about." "Such as?" Another pause. "The custody papers. I didn't want to sign them. Your mother and Ashley, they said it was just a formality. Something to protect Ethan if anything happened to you overseas. But I saw the language. I knew what it really meant. And you signed anyway. His voice cracked. I've been a coward my whole life, Megan, but I don't want to die one. Please, let me help. I looked across the hotel room at Marcus, who was watching me with concern. He couldn't hear the conversation, but he could see my expression. Why should I trust you? I asked my father. You've never stood up for me before. Because I'm 73 years old and I'm tired. Because I look at your mother and I don't recognize her anymore. Because I see what she did to that boy and I can't sleep at night. He took a shaky breath. And because when I die, I don't want the last thing I did to be helping them steal your child. His voice broke on the last word. I heard something I had never heard from my father before. Regret. Real, genuine regret. I remember when you were born, he said quietly. You were so small, so perfect. I held you in my arms and I promised I would protect you. And I broke that promise. Every day for 34 years, I broke that promise. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to believe him. The little girl who had spent her whole life trying to earn her father's approval wanted desperately to believe him, but I wasn't that little girl anymore. I'll think about it, I said. If you want to talk, meet me at the coffee shop on 4th Street tomorrow, 10 in the morning. Come alone. I hung up and told Marcus what had happened. He could be genuine, Marcus said slowly. Or he could be trying to find out what you know so he can report back to them. I know. So what do you want to do? I thought about Grace's words. Weak people are predictable. They follow whoever makes them feel safest. I'll meet him, I said. But I won't tell him anything he doesn't already know. If he's sincere, I'll know. And if he's not, I shrugged. Then I'll know that too. That evening, Ashley called. I almost didn't answer, but something told me this call was different, important. Sister, Ashley's voice came through the speaker, and the word was poison. We need to talk. So, talk. In person. This has all gotten out of hand. Mom is a mess, Dad's not sleeping, and now I've got some crazy woman suing me for money I never took. She tried to sound casual, but I could hear the strain underneath. We're family, Megan. Whatever happened, we can work it out. Is that what you think? That we can work it out? I think you're making a mistake. I think you're letting outside people influence you, putting ideas in your head, making you think things that aren't true. What things aren't true, Ashley? A pause. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Harder. Colder. You know I've been going through some old emails lately. Your old email account, the one Mom set up for you in high school, you really should have changed that password. My blood ran cold. You've been reading my emails. Just keeping an eye on things, making sure you weren't planning anything crazy. Ashley laughed, but there was no humor in it. Some of those messages you sent during your divorce were really something. All that anger, all that resentment, the things you said about Mom, about me, about wanting us to suffer. I remembered those emails, sent in the darkest moments of my divorce when I had nowhere else to put my pain. I had vented to the void, never imagining anyone would read them. Taking emails out of context isn't evidence of anything. Maybe not in court. But in the court of public opinion, Ashley's voice turned sweet venomous. A mentally unstable woman who fantasizes about hurting her family, who kidnapped her own son in the middle of the night. Those emails would make fascinating reading for Channel 7. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You think you're so smart, Megan. You think you've got it all figured out, but you don't know what we have on you. You don't know what's coming. I think I know exactly what's coming, I said quietly. And I don't think you're going to like it. Victims don't win, sister. They never do. Then it's a good thing I stopped being a victim. I hung up before she could respond. Marcus was watching me from across the room. What did she say? I told him about the emails, the threats, the access to my old account. His expression darkened. He turned to his laptop and started typing rapidly. A few minutes later, he looked up. She wasn't lying. There's been activity on your old email account for months. Someone's been logging in regularly, reading everything. He pulled up a log. They've accessed messages going back years, including everything from your divorce. I thought about what I had written during those dark days. The angry vents to friends who never responded. The frustrated messages to my ex about my mother's interference. The late-night emails where I had poured out every bitter thought I had ever had about my family. Taken out of context, edited together, presented to a sympathetic audience. It could be devastating. "What's in those emails that could hurt you?" Marcus asked. I closed my eyes. Everything. Every moment of weakness. Every angry thought I ever had. Every time I said I wished they would disappear from my life. Can they actually use that against you legally? Maybe not in court. But Ashley's right about public opinion. If she leaks those emails to the press, I become the crazy daughter, the unstable mother. Everything my mother has been saying about me would be confirmed. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "When's the last time you logged into that account?" "Years ago. I forgot it even existed." "Then they don't know you know. They think they have a weapon you don't know about." He met my eyes. "That's valuable, Megan. Surprise is valuable." I thought about that, about Ashley's smug voice, about my mother's press conference, about the war they thought they were winning. Can you download everything in that account before they can delete anything? Already on it. I watched him work this man who had become my partner in ways I never expected. I had spent so long building my case against them that I forgot they were building one against me too. Every angry email, every frustrated vent, every moment of weakness I had confided to the void. They had been reading it all. In 3 days we would face each other in court, and they thought they had a weapon I didn't know about. They were right about the weapon, but they were wrong about the surprise, because now I knew. And knowing changed everything. They wanted a war of public opinion. Fine. But this time, I would be ready. This time, I would strike first. And when I was done, they would understand that victims don't just survive. Sometimes they win. My father was already waiting when I arrived at the coffee shop. He sat in a corner booth, hunched over a cup of coffee he wasn't drinking. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the past week. His hands trembled as he lifted the cup, and when he saw me approach, something in his face crumbled. "Megan." His voice was hoarse. "Thank you for coming." I slid into the seat across from him, keeping my expression neutral. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Not anymore. "You said you had something to show me." He nodded and reached under the table. When his hand came back up, it held a manila folder. He slid it across to me like it was something poisonous. "I took these from your mother's safe," he said. "She doesn't know. If she finds out..." He trailed off, but I could see the fear in his eyes. I opened the folder. The first page hit me like a physical blow. Custody documents. Official-looking, stamped, notarized. And at the bottom, a signature that looked exactly like mine. "It's not real," I said, but my voice shook. "No, it's not." My father's hands were shaking too. "They practiced for weeks. Ashley found old documents you had signed over the years. Credit card applications, apartment leases, anything with your signature on it. She traced it over and over until she could replicate it perfectly." I stared at the forgery. It was flawless. If I hadn't known for certain that I never signed these papers, I might have believed it myself. "How long?" I asked. "How long have they been planning this?" My father was quiet for a long moment. His coffee had gone cold untouched since I arrived. He stared at it like it held answers he was afraid to find. "Over a year. Maybe longer. I don't know exactly when it started." He ran a hand through his thinning hair. "Ashley approached a lawyer she knew. Someone who was willing to bend the rules. They created backdated documents, made it look like you had signed over custody before you left for Singapore. Everything was ready before you even got on that plane. And you signed too." He flinched like I had struck him. "Ashley said it was just a formality, something to protect Ethan if anything happened to you overseas. A safety net, she called it. I didn't know what they were really planning. I swear I didn't know." I wanted to believe him, But I had spent my whole life wanting to believe my family, and look where that had gotten me. "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you telling me this now after everything?" He looked up at me, and for the first time in my life I saw my father clearly. Not the passive shadow who had always let my mother control everything, but a broken man who had spent 60 years taking the path of least resistance, and who had finally reached a wall he couldn't walk around. "Because I saw that boy," he said. "I saw what they did to him, and I couldn't pretend anymore." His voice cracked. "I'm 73 years old, Megan. I don't have much time left, and I don't want to die knowing I helped them destroy you." "There's something else," he said. "Something I didn't understand until recently." He looked around the coffee shop, making sure no one was listening. "I thought your mother was the one running things. I thought she was the one making the decisions, and Ashley was just following along." He met my eyes, and I saw something I had never seen in my father before. Fear. Real, genuine fear. "I was wrong. Ashley's been pulling the strings for years. Your mother just follows." I brought the documents back to the hotel, my mind racing. Marcus was waiting with coffee and questions. When I showed him the papers, his expression darkened. "This is professional-grade work," he said, examining the signature. "Whoever forged this knew what they were doing. Look at the pressure points, the flow of the letters. This isn't someone who traced a signature once. This is someone who practiced until it became muscle memory." My father said they practiced for weeks. "They'd have to. This level of replication takes time and dedication." He set the papers down. "Megan, this isn't a crime of opportunity. This is premeditated fraud. They planned this down to the smallest detail." The documents were dated March of this year, 6 months before I left for Singapore. 6 months before Ethan started living in that basement. "If these papers were supposedly signed in March," I said slowly, "then why was Ethan's medical history completely normal until September? The emergency room records show he was healthy at his last pediatrician visit in August." Marcus understood immediately. "Because the papers are backdated. They created documents claiming you gave up custody in March, but Ethan wasn't actually in their care until you left in September. The medical timeline proves the documents are false." I photographed every page of the custody papers before my father came back to collect them. "If she knows I took them, she'll destroy everything else," he said, tucking the folder back into his jacket. "But you have copies now. You have proof." He paused at the door, looking back at me with those tired, frightened eyes. "I'm sorry, Megan, for everything. I should have protected you. Both of you." Then he was gone, and I was left with photographs of lies that had almost cost me my son. I called Diane immediately. "This changes everything," she said when I explained what I had found. "If we can prove these documents were forged, we're not just looking at a custody case anymore. This is criminal fraud, conspiracy, possibly even identity theft." "There's more. My father mentioned a lawyer who helped them. Someone named Thomas Webb." Silence on the other end. Then, "Did you say Thomas Webb? You know him?" "Thomas Webb was disbarred 2 years ago for fraud and ethical violations. But before that," I could hear her typing. "Before that, he had a family law practice. He was known for being willing to push boundaries." "He was still practicing in March, when these documents were supposedly created. Which means if he prepared these documents knowing they were fraudulent, he committed crimes even before his disbarment." Diane's voice had taken on a predatory edge. "This isn't just your sister anymore, Megan. This is a criminal conspiracy involving at least 3 people. Your sister, your mother, and a disgraced attorney." After I hung up, I pulled up Ashley's Instagram from March of this year. It took me 20 minutes to find it buried between photos of shopping trips and spa days. A picture of Ashley at a restaurant sitting across from a middle-aged man in a suit. The caption read, "Business meeting with my favorite advisor. Big things coming." The man was Thomas Webb. I had seen his photo in the news articles about his disbarment. My sister had documented her criminal conspiracy on social media. She had literally posted evidence of her fraud for the world to see. She thought she was untouchable. She thought no one would ever connect the dots. She was wrong. That afternoon, with Ethan napping in the bedroom, I finally opened the USB drive Grace had left me. Marcus sat beside me as the first recording began to play. The audio quality wasn't great. clearly recorded on a phone hidden somewhere nearby. But the voices were unmistakable. My mother, "Are you sure this will work?" Ashley, "Trust me. Once she's overseas, she won't be able to fight it. By the time she realizes what happened, Ethan will have been living with us for months. No judge is going to disrupt a stable living situation." My mother, "But what if she finds out?" Ashley's laugh was cold, calculated, nothing like the bubbly sister act she performed in public. "She won't. She trusts us. That's her weakness. She's so desperate to be loved that she'll believe anything we tell her." I felt Marcus's hand on my shoulder, steady and warm. The second recording was worse. "Ashley, Thomas says the documents will hold up. As long as we file before she returns, everything will be in place. The notary didn't even ask questions." My mother, "And the money? All of it. Every cent she sends will go directly to me. She'll think it's going to Ethan, but it'll be financing the new house. Derek doesn't even know. He thinks my business is finally profitable." They laughed together, mother and daughter laughing about stealing my money and my son. But the third recording was the one that broke something inside me. Ashley, "Mom, I've been planning this since her wedding." My mother, "Since her wedding, that was 10 years ago, Ashley. And I've waited 10 years for her to be vulnerable enough. She always had to have everything. The degree, the career, the perfect son. She made the rest of us look bad just by existing. Well, now it's my turn. Now she gets to know what it feels like to have nothing." I stopped the recording. I couldn't breathe. 10 years. The words kept echoing in my head, each repetition hitting harder than the last. My sister had spent a decade planning my destruction. Not months. Not a year. 10 years of smiling at family dinners, accepting birthday gifts, pretending to be happy for my successes. 10 years of hugging me at holidays and telling me she was proud of me. 10 years of asking about Ethan and sending him presents and playing the doting aunt, all while plotting to take everything I had. I thought about her face at my wedding, the maid of honor speech she had given all about sisterly love and family bonds, the tears she had shed that everyone thought were happy. Had she been planning even then? Had she stood beside me in that church, watched me say my vows, and thought about how she would eventually destroy me? "Megan." Marcus's voice seemed far away. "Megan, look at me." I turned to him, and I didn't know what expression was on my face, but whatever he saw made him pull me into his arms. "I didn't know," I whispered. "I had no idea. How could you? She's been lying her entire life." I thought about all the times Ashley had seemed jealous but ultimately supportive. All the backhanded compliments I had dismissed as sibling rivalry. All the moments where something felt off, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. 10 years of being played. 10 years of trusting someone who wanted to destroy me. Marcus spent the next few hours digging deeper. The picture that emerged was devastating. Ashley had a history. Karen wasn't her first victim. There had been 3 other business partners over the years, each one losing money to Ashley's schemes. One had filed a formal complaint but dropped it suddenly. Another had moved out of state. The third had simply disappeared from social media entirely. Then there was Derek's family. His inheritance from his grandfather had been substantial. Most of it was gone now, filtered through Ashley's various business ventures that never seemed to turn a profit. But the worst discovery was closer to home. "I found something in the financial records Grace gave you," Marcus said quietly. "Your parents' retirement accounts. They were drained 3 years ago, supposedly invested in Ashley's boutique business. Ashley stole from our parents, too." "It looks that way. And based on the timing, your mother doesn't know. She thinks those accounts are still intact." I thought about my father's words. "Your mother is going to destroy me when she finds out." He wasn't just talking about the custody papers. He was talking about a lifetime of letting Ashley steal from everyone around her. "She's not just a con artist," Marcus said. "She's a predator. Everyone around her is prey. Even her own family." My sister, the golden child, the favorite daughter, the one who could do no wrong. She was a monster, and she had been hiding in plain sight for decades. Diane called that evening with news. "I've spent all day reviewing the evidence," she said. "I have to be honest with you, Megan. In 20 years of family law, I have never seen a case this solid. What does that mean for the hearing? It means we're going to win. The forged custody documents, the financial fraud, the recorded confessions, the medical records proving neglect. It's overwhelming. No judge in the country would rule against you. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt a growing unease. What about criminal charges? Almost certain. For Ashley, probably conspiracy, fraud, and forgery at minimum. For your mother, conspiracy, and possibly child endangerment. The disgraced attorney is a separate case entirely, but his involvement strengthens the criminal aspect. And Ashley could go to prison. For years. The financial fraud alone is substantial, combined with the custody forgery and child endangerment. Diane paused. Your sister made a lot of mistakes, Megan. She documented too much, trusted too many people, and underestimated you. She's going to pay for every single one of those mistakes. I thanked her and ended the call. Marcus was watching me with concern. You should be happy. We won. I know. So why do you look like you just got bad news? I couldn't explain it. The victory felt hollow somehow, incomplete. Like finding the treasure only to realize the map led somewhere else entirely. We had the evidence. We had the testimony. We had everything we needed to win in court and send Ashley to prison. But something was wrong. Something I couldn't name. Maybe it's just exhaustion, I said, but I didn't believe it. Marcus didn't either. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll finalize everything for the hearing. But I couldn't rest. Not yet. That night, after Ethan was asleep, I took out Grace's sealed letter. The time is right, I thought. If there was ever a moment to read it, it was now. The paper was old, the handwriting careful and deliberate. Grace's voice came through in every word. My dearest Megan, if you're reading this, then you've found the evidence. You've seen what your mother and sister are capable of. And you're probably feeling like you've won. But there's one more thing you need to know. 5 years ago, Ashley tried this before. Not with you, with your father. When Bob's father died, he left a substantial inheritance. Ashley created forged documents to redirect that money into her own accounts. She would have succeeded too if I hadn't caught it by accident. I confronted her privately. I told her I would go to the police if she didn't return every cent. She did. But she also made something very clear to me. She told me that she would never stop, that she had been waiting her whole life to take what was rightfully hers. That if I told anyone what she had done, she would make sure I spent my final years alone and forgotten. I was a coward, Megan. I protected my son from his own daughter-in-law, but I couldn't protect you. I couldn't find the courage to expose what Ashley really was. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But there's something else you need to understand. Ashley doesn't just want your money. She doesn't even really want Ethan, not the way a parent wants a child. She wants your destruction. She wants to see you broken, humiliated, stripped of everything you've built. Even from prison, she will find ways to hurt you. She will poison your reputation, turn people against you, make sure you never have peace. This isn't just about custody. This isn't even about money. This is about annihilation. And your sister won't rest until one of you is destroyed. Be careful, my dear. Be smart. And be ruthless. Because Ashley certainly will be. With all my love, Grace. I read the letter 3 times. Then I sat in the darkness of the hotel room, listening to my son breathe, and I understood. I had thought winning the court case would end this. I had thought justice would set me free. But Grace's letter told a different story. A story of a woman so consumed by jealousy that she had spent a decade plotting revenge. A woman who had already tried once and been stopped only to try again more carefully with better planning. Ashley wouldn't stop. Not after the court case. Not after prison. Not ever. The truth was worse than I had imagined. This wasn't about custody. It wasn't even about money. This was about annihilation. And my sister wouldn't rest until one of us was destroyed. I looked at the evidence spread around me. The forged documents, the financial records, the recordings, the photographs. I had thought I was building a legal case, but now I understood. I was building a fortress, and the siege had only just begun. Outside the window, the city slept. Somewhere out there, my mother and sister were probably sleeping, too confident in their plans, secure in their lies. They had no idea what was coming for them. But Grace was right. Even after we won, even after justice was served, Ashley would find ways to continue the war. She would whisper poison from prison. She would turn family against me. She would make sure the battle never truly ended. I had two choices. I could live the rest of my life looking over my shoulder waiting for the next attack, or I could end this. Completely. Permanently. I looked at my sleeping son, innocent and unaware of the forces that had tried to claim him. For him, I would do whatever it took. For him, I would become whatever I needed to be. The war had begun, and I intended to be the one left standing when it was over. The morning of day 6 started with hope. Ethan was sitting up in bed laughing at cartoons, eating scrambled eggs without being coaxed. His cheeks had filled out. His eyes had that spark again. He looked like a different child from the one I had found in that basement just a week ago. Marcus was at the desk organizing our evidence files for the 100th time. Everything was ready. The forged custody documents, the financial records, the recordings, the medical evidence. Tomorrow, we would walk into that courtroom with enough ammunition to end this. Diane says to try to rest today, I told Marcus, setting down my phone. Final prep meeting this evening, then nothing to do but wait. He nodded, but I caught the concern in his eyes. How are you feeling? Cautiously optimistic. I looked out the window at the gray December sky. But something feels off. It's too quiet. Too quiet. My family doesn't do quiet. They do chaos drama manipulation. They haven't contacted me since Ashley's threat 2 days ago. That's not like them. Marcus considered this. Maybe they've accepted they're going to lose. No, I shook my head. They're planning something. I can feel it. 2 hours later, I found out what they were planning. Marcus had turned on the local news looking for weather updates. Instead, we found my mother. She was standing at a podium flanked by Ashley and a man in a suit I didn't recognize. The banner at the bottom of the screen read, Grandmother's desperate plea for missing grandson. Oh no, Marcus breathed. Megan, you need to see this. I moved to the screen just as my mother began to speak. As a grandmother, as a mother, I am begging for help. Her voice cracked with practiced emotion. Tears streamed down her carefully made-up face. My grandson Ethan has been taken by his mother, who is suffering from severe mental illness. We fear for his safety. We fear for her safety. The man beside her stepped forward. I'm Richard Hayes, attorney for the Davis family. We have evidence that Megan Anderson has been experiencing a mental health crisis exhibiting paranoid and delusional behavior. We are asking the court for an emergency intervention. The screen changed to show screenshots of emails, my emails, words I had written during the darkest days of my divorce when I had no one to talk to, and used email like a journal. I wish they would all disappear. Sometimes I hate them so much I can barely breathe. If I never saw my family again, it would be too soon. The news anchor's voice cut in. These emails provided by the family suggest a pattern of hostility and mental instability. The family claims they fear for their safety. Back to Linda, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. My daughter needs help. My grandson needs protection. We're not trying to punish anyone. We just want our family safe. The camera panned to show Ashley standing beside her, face arranged in perfect sisterly concern. She squeezed our mother's hand supportively. The image of a caring family devastated by their troubled relative. It was a masterpiece of manipulation, every detail calculated, every tear strategically placed. I couldn't breathe. She's using my own words against me, I whispered. Words I wrote in my darkest moments, and she's making me sound like a monster. Marcus was already on his phone talking rapidly to Diane, but I couldn't focus on his words. All I could see was my mother's face on that screen, performing grief she didn't feel, weaponizing pain I had trusted to the void. Those emails. I remembered writing them. Sitting alone in my apartment after my divorce, feeling abandoned by everyone who was supposed to love me. I had typed those words into the darkness because I had no one to talk to. Because my family had made it clear I wasn't welcome to share my feelings with them. And now they were using my loneliness as a weapon. The comment section was already flooding with opinions. That poor family. Clearly the daughter has issues. Someone needs to check on that child. Mental illness is no joke. That kid needs to be with stable family members. In the span of a single press conference, I had become the villain. My phone started buzzing with messages. Old college friends, distant relatives, even a former coworker from years ago. Megan saw the news, are you okay? Is it true what they're saying? I had no idea you were going through this. Call me if you need to talk. Even the sympathetic messages felt like accusations. Like everyone was looking at me differently now. Like the image my mother had painted was seeping into every relationship I had ever had. My phone rang an hour later. The number was Derek's. I hesitated before answering. After everything I had learned, I didn't know what to expect from my brother-in-law. Megan. His voice was nervous, rushed. I need to tell you something. Before tomorrow. I'm listening. I didn't know what they were planning. Not at first. He was speaking quickly like he was afraid of being overheard. When Ashley asked me to sign those custody papers as a witness, she said it was just a backup document. Something to protect Ethan if anything happened to you overseas. I believed her. And now, a long pause. I found out the truth about 6 months ago. I saw Ashley and your mother planning, heard them talking about how they were going to take Ethan permanently. I wanted to tell you. I swear I did. Then why didn't you? Because Ashley has things on me. His voice dropped even lower. I have gambling debts, Megan. Bad ones. Started a few years ago, got out of control. I was going to lose everything. My house, my family, everything. And Ashley found out. She always finds out. There was something like admiration in his voice mixed with fear. She offered to help. Said family takes care of family. I was so grateful. I didn't realize until later that she was just adding me to her collection. Her collection of people who owe her. People she can control. And he laughed bitterly. Your sister is the most dangerous person I've ever known, Megan, and I don't think anyone in your family understands that except maybe your grandmother. I felt sick. Another person caught in Ashley's web, another victim who had become an accomplice. So you knew, I said flatly. You knew they were stealing my son and you said nothing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you every single day, but every time I thought about it I imagined Ashley's face, that smile she gets when she's about to destroy someone. I couldn't risk it. Sorry doesn't give me back the months I lost. Sorry doesn't undo what happened to Ethan. I know. He sounded close to tears. I can't testify for you tomorrow. Ashley will destroy me if I do. She'll tell my wife about the debts, about everything. She'll make sure I lose my kids, my job, everything I have left. But I wanted you to know the truth. I wanted you to know I never meant for any of this to happen. But you let it happen anyway. Silence. Then, yes, I did. And I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. He hung up before I could respond. Derek wasn't the mastermind. He wasn't even a willing participant. He was just another person too weak to stand up to Ashley, too deep in her debt to break free. Just like my father. Just like everyone my sister had ever manipulated. Grace called 2 hours later and her voice was shaking. Sweetheart, I need to tell you something. What happened? Your mother came to see me this morning. She knows about the safety deposit box. She knows about everything. My blood ran cold. How? I don't know. Maybe your father told her. Maybe she found out some other way. She has ways of finding things out. She always has. Grace's voice steadied anger replacing fear. She threatened me, Megan. Said if I testified tomorrow, she would have me declared mentally incompetent. Said she would hire doctors to say I have dementia. Said she would make sure I spent my last years in a locked ward somewhere unable to speak to anyone, forgotten by the world. She can't do that. You're perfectly lucid. She can try. And even if she fails, the process would take months. Depositions, medical evaluations, court appearances. At my age, the stress alone could kill me. Grace laughed bitterly. She also found out about my will, about leaving everything to you and Ethan instead of her precious golden child. She called me a traitor to my own blood, as if blood ever stopped her from lying and stealing and destroying everyone around her. Grace, I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I shouldn't have involved you. No. Her voice was firm now, stronger than I had heard it in years. I involved myself 20 years ago when I started collecting evidence. I knew this day would come eventually. I just didn't expect to still be alive when it did. And honestly, I'm glad I am. I've been waiting decades to watch that woman face consequences. Are you okay? Do you need me to come there? I'm fine. The staff saw everything. They're documenting her behavior. The nursing home director was quite concerned about a family member threatening a resident. Grace paused. But she's desperate now, Megan. Desperate people do desperate things. Be careful. I will. And sweetheart, no matter what happens tomorrow, know that I'm proud of you. You're the daughter I should have had. I hung up and sat in silence, processing. They were attacking everyone who helped me. Grace, Marcus, Karen, anyone who dared to stand on my side. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a siege. My father called at 4 p.m. His voice was different than before. Flat, defeated. All the resolve he had shown when he handed me those documents was gone. Megan, I can't testify tomorrow. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Your mother found out about the documents I took. She convinced me that I was wrong about what I saw. Convinced you, Dad, you gave me photographic evidence of forged papers? I was confused. His voice was robotic, rehearsed. I misremembered the details. The documents were legitimate. I was mistaken. That's not true, and you know it. Megan, please. Something cracked in his voice. She'll take everything. The house, the retirement accounts, everything we've built in 40 years of marriage. She'll destroy me. So you're going to let her destroy me instead. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. I have to protect myself. You were supposed to protect me. You're my father. I know. His voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone in my hand. My father had chosen his comfort over his conscience. Again. For the 100th time in my life. But this time it might cost me everything. The bad news kept coming. Diane called at 6 with updates, none of them good. The judge had seen my mother's press conference. He was concerned about the circus atmosphere and was considering delaying the hearing to let things settle down. A delay would give my family more time to spin their narrative, more time to attack my supporters, more time to turn public opinion against me. Then Karen called. Ashley's lawyer had filed a motion to dismiss her civil suit claiming harassment and a coordinated campaign to destroy an innocent woman's reputation. The motion was full of lies, but it would take time and money to fight. Time and money Karen didn't have. I'm not giving up, Karen said, but they're making it as hard as possible. Finally, Marcus got a call that made him go pale. That was my company's HR department, he said quietly. Someone contacted them. Anonymous complaint about my involvement in a family dispute. They want to know if I'm using company resources for personal matters. Ashley. Has to be. He set down his phone. They're asking me to come in for a meeting next week, to discuss my conduct. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to affect your career. I don't care about my career. He took my hands in his. I care about you. I care about Ethan. Nothing else matters. But I saw the worry in his eyes. The cost of helping me was getting higher every day. They're not just attacking me anymore, I said. They're attacking everyone who tries to help me. It's like they want to make sure I'm completely alone. That's exactly what they want. They want you isolated, vulnerable, easier to defeat. Marcus squeezed my hands. But you're not alone. I'm still here. Diane's still here. Karen's still here. They can pressure us all they want. We're not going anywhere. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But as I looked at the mounting evidence of my family's scorched earth campaign, I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. That night, after Ethan fell asleep, I sat in the darkness of the hotel room and tried to think. The hearing was tomorrow, the biggest day of my life. But everything had changed. My father wouldn't testify. He had crumbled under my mother's pressure just like Grace had predicted. Weak people follow whoever makes them feel safest. Grace was under attack, threatened with incompetency proceedings if she dared to help me. The media had turned me into a cautionary tale. The unstable daughter, the dangerous mother, the woman who wrote hateful emails about her own family. Marcus's job was at risk. Karen's lawsuit was under attack. Everyone who tried to help me was paying a price. I looked at the evidence spread across the hotel desk, the forged documents, the recordings, the financial records. It was still strong. Diane said it was still enough to win. But winning the custody case wouldn't stop my family. It would just make them angrier, more desperate, more dangerous. Grace's words echoed in my head. Ashley doesn't just want your money. She wants your destruction. For a moment, I let myself imagine another path. What if I just took Ethan and disappeared? New names, new city, new life. We could vanish, start over somewhere they would never find us. Leave the lawyers and the court cases and the evidence behind. Just run. The temptation was overwhelming. To stop fighting, to stop hurting, to simply escape. I thought about all the people who had tried to help me. Marcus, who was now risking his career. Karen, whose lawsuit was under attack. Grace, who was being threatened with incompetency. Even my father, who had tried to do the right thing and crumbled under pressure. Everyone who came near me got hurt. Everyone who tried to help me became a target. Maybe the kindest thing I could do was disappear. Stop dragging innocent people into my family's war. Let them all go back to their lives without the weight of my problems crushing them. But then I looked at my son sleeping peacefully in the other bed. His face was relaxed, trusting. He believed I would keep him safe. He believed I would make things right. If I ran, they would find us eventually. Ashley would never stop looking, and when she found us, Ethan would learn that his mother was a coward who fled instead of fighting. What kind of lesson would I teach him if I ran? That bullies win if you let them, that family can treat you however they want and you just have to accept it. That the weak inherit the earth because the strong got tired of fighting. No. I had come too far to stop now. Sacrificed too much. Hurt too many people who had tried to help me. And somewhere out there, Grace was sitting in her nursing home defiant despite the threats. Marcus was preparing to walk into that courtroom beside me, regardless of the cost. Karen was fighting her own battle against Ashley, refusing to back down. They believed in me. They were risking everything for me. I couldn't let their sacrifices be for nothing. I had built my case so carefully, gathered every piece of evidence, found every ally, prepared for every contingency. And in a single day, I watched it all slip away. My father had betrayed me again. My grandmother was under attack. My supporters were being targeted one by one. And tomorrow, I would walk into that courtroom with half the world believing I was the villain. For the first time since this began, I didn't know if I could win. For the first time, I wondered if I should stop fighting. But then I looked at my son sleeping peacefully, trusting me to keep him safe. And I knew that stopping was never really an option. Tomorrow, I would fight, even if I had to fight alone, even if I had to lose everything else to save him. The night stretched ahead of me, long and sleepless. Tomorrow would come whether I was ready or not, and one way or another, everything was about to change. I watched my son sleep and wondered if I had already failed him. The hotel room was dark, lit only by the pale glow of streetlights filtering through the curtains. 5 a.m. The hearing was in 9 hours. In 9 hours, a judge would decide whether I was fit to raise my own child. And I had never felt less fit for anything in my life. The damage from yesterday played through my mind on an endless loop. My mother's tearful performance on television. The edited emails making me look unstable. My father's betrayal. Grace's threats. Marcus's career in jeopardy. Every ally I had found, every piece of support I had gathered, systematically attacked and undermined. Marcus stirred on the other bed, sensing I was awake. "Can't sleep?" he asked quietly. "Haven't slept." He sat up, rubbing his eyes. "We should go over the evidence one more time. Make sure everything is... What's the point?" The words came out flat, hollow. I heard them and barely recognized my own voice. Marcus went still. "What do you mean? They've taken everything." I turned from the window, and I could see the concern in his eyes, even in the darkness. "My reputation, my witnesses, my father. The public thinks I'm a monster. The judge has probably already seen that press conference. What do I have left?" "You have the truth. The truth doesn't matter if no one believes it." I looked at Ethan, still sleeping peacefully, unaware that his future was being decided by people who had never really loved either of us. Maybe I should have just taken him and run, started over somewhere they couldn't find us. "Megan, what kind of life am I giving him? A mother who's been branded as mentally unstable. A family that will never stop trying to take him. He deserves better than this. He deserves better than me. I heard myself saying the words, and some part of me knew they weren't true. But exhaustion and despair had worn down my defenses, and the darkness was seeping in. For the first time since this began, I genuinely didn't know if I could win. For the first time, I wasn't sure I should keep fighting. I retreated to the bathroom, needing to be alone with the weight crushing my chest. The fluorescent light was harsh and unforgiving. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a stranger staring back. Dark circles under bloodshot eyes. Skin pale from days of stress and sleepless nights. Hair tangled and limp. This was what they had reduced me to. This hollow shell of the woman I used to be. I gripped the edges of the sink and let the tears come. Not tears of sadness. Not even tears of anger. These were tears of release, of letting go of something I had carried for far too long. I thought about my life, about 34 years of trying to be enough for people who would never see my worth. About every sacrifice I had made, every boundary I had let them cross, every piece of myself I had given away, hoping that this time finally they would love me back. And they never did. They never would. I thought about birthdays spent trying to make everyone else happy, holidays where I did all the work and received none of the appreciation, the way my mother's eyes would light up when Ashley walked in the room and dim when she looked at me, the way my father would nod along with whatever my mother said, never once standing up for me. I had built my entire identity around earning their approval, around being the good daughter, the reliable one, the one who never complained and always gave. I had let their opinions define my value, their treatment determine my worth. I had taken the overseas job partly because I thought it would make them proud. I had sent $5,000 a month because I thought it would finally prove that I was worth something to them. And what had they done with my love, my sacrifice, my desperate need to belong? They had stolen my money, neglected my son, forged my signature, plotted to take everything I had, not because they needed to, but because they could. Because they had always seen me as someone to use, not someone to love. And where had it gotten me? Standing in a hotel bathroom at 5 a.m, wondering if I should stop fighting for my own son. No. Something shifted in my chest, a crack opening in a wall I hadn't known I had built. I didn't need their love. I had never needed their love. I had needed to love myself enough to walk away. And I hadn't been strong enough to do it until they forced my hand. I looked at the woman in the mirror again. Saw her differently this time. Not broken, forged, tempered by pain into something stronger than before. I had spent 34 years trying to earn a place in a family that never wanted me. Today, I would stop fighting for their love. Today, I would fight for my freedom. For my son's freedom. Not revenge. Not validation. Not approval. Freedom. When I emerged from the bathroom, Marcus was sitting at the desk, laptop open, eyes fixed on the screen with an intensity I hadn't seen before. "I found something," he said. "Something big." I walked over, still feeling raw from my bathroom revelation, but curious despite myself. "What is it?" "The Ring camera footage. I've been going through it again, looking for anything we might have missed." He pulled up a video file. "Remember the conversation from October? Your mother and sister discussing the custody papers, the one Grace recorded. That one showed up on the Ring footage too. Different angle, different audio quality, but I kept watching past where we stopped before." He clicked play. "Look at this." The screen showed my parents' front porch lit by the porch light. Ashley stepped outside, phone pressed to her ear. She walked to the far end of the porch, clearly trying to be out of earshot of anyone inside. But the Ring doorbell was only 10 feet away, and its microphone picked up everything. "The documents are ready," Ashley said into the phone. "File them Monday morning, before she has a chance to respond." A male voice on the other end, tinny but audible, "And if she contests, she won't even know they exist until it's too late. By the time she figures out what happened, Ethan will have been living with us for months. No judge disrupts a stable home." "What about the money situation?" Ashley laughed. "Already handled. Transfer the first payment to the Cayman account. Once it's offshore, she'll never find it." I stopped breathing. Did she just say, Cayman account? Marcus nodded grimly. They've been moving money offshore. This isn't just fraud, Megan. This is money laundering. Federal jurisdiction. FBI territory. I stared at the screen at my sister's smiling face as she discussed hiding stolen money in international accounts. The same sister who had hugged me at family gatherings, who had texted me happy birthday every year, who had sent me photos of her daughter playing with Ethan pretending to be the perfect aunt, all while plotting to steal my money, my son, my entire life. There's more, Marcus said. He pulled up another file. I traced the phone number she called. It's registered to a burner phone, but the cell tower data puts it near Thomas Webb's last known address. The disbarred lawyer, who apparently wasn't just helping them forge custody papers, he was helping them hide assets. Marcus turned to face me fully. Your mother and sister aren't looking at custody loss anymore, Megan. They're looking at federal prison. Real prison. Not county jail, not probation. Federal penitentiary. The weight of it settled over me. Not joy, exactly, but something like justice finally approaching. How long? I asked. Money laundering across state lines, wire fraud conspiracy? Marcus shook his head. Years, possibly decades. And that's before we add the custody forgery and child endangerment charges. I sat down heavily on the bed trying to process what this meant. All those years of being treated like nothing. All those sacrifices that were never enough. All that pain and rejection and desperate longing for approval. And now they were going to prison. Not because of revenge, not because I had plotted their downfall, but because the truth had finally come to light. We called Diane at 7:30. I put her on speaker so Marcus could play the footage. When it ended, there was a long silence. Well, Diane finally said, and I could hear something almost like glee in her professional voice. This changes absolutely everything. Is it admissible? It's your security camera recording activity on your property. Absolutely admissible. And the content? She let out a breath. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Money laundering. Potential wire fraud if they used electronic transfers. This isn't family court anymore. This is federal criminal court. What do we do with it? We present it today at the custody hearing. But I'm also making copies for the FBI field office. They're going to want to see this. Karen joined the call a few minutes later, and her news made everything even worse for my family. My forensic accountant found the offshore account, she said. It's been active for 3 years. Hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing through it, none of it reported to the IRS. Ashley's been doing this for years. At least. And here's the really interesting part. I could hear Karen's smile through the phone. Those gambling debt payments Derek mentioned, they came from this account. She was paying off his debts with money she stole from you. Everyone she controlled, she was using your money to do it. She was playing everyone against each other, I said slowly. Using my money to buy loyalty, my son to buy leverage, all while pretending to be the victim. Your sister built a criminal empire, Diane said, and she documented every piece of it because she never thought anyone would look. Arrogance like that always catches up eventually. So what happens now? Now we walk into that courtroom and we lay it all out, the forged custody papers, the financial fraud, the money laundering, the offshore accounts, the recordings. Diane's voice was tight with controlled excitement. They came to court expecting to paint you as unstable. They're going to leave in handcuffs. At 9 o'clock, Grace called. I heard what they did to you yesterday, she said. Her voice was different than before, stronger, clearer, like a woman who had finally made peace with a decision. That press conference. Those lies about you being unstable. It was bad, I admitted. But we found new evidence. It's going to... I know what you found. Your lawyer called me this morning. Grace paused. I've made a decision, Megan. I'm going to testify. Grace, they threatened you. They said they'd have you declared incompetent. Let them try. There was steel in her voice that I had never heard before. I'm 84 years old. I've lived my life. What are they going to do to me that matters anymore? But the stress of staying silent has been killing me for 20 years. The stress of finally telling the truth. She laughed softly. That's not stress. That's relief. She explained that she had already arranged everything with her own lawyer. A video deposition from the nursing home admissible in court. She would testify to the pattern of behavior she had witnessed spanning decades. The lies, the manipulation, The theft. All of it. But there's something else, Grace said. Something I didn't tell you before. What? I made copies of everything in that safety deposit box. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence. And I sent those copies to 3 different lawyers in 3 different cities. Why? Insurance. Her voice hardened. Your mother threatened to silence me. Now she knows that if anything happens to me, the truth comes out everywhere. Every newspaper, every television station, every law enforcement agency, I made sure of it. I felt tears prick my eyes again, but these were different. These were tears of gratitude. Grace, I don't know how to thank you. You can thank me by winning, by taking back everything they stole, by raising that boy to be nothing like them. She paused. I've waited 20 years for this day, sweetheart. I'm not missing it. Today, the world hears the truth. At 10 o'clock, Marcus turned on the news. I was helping Ethan with his breakfast, trying to keep things normal for him, despite the chaos swirling around us. But when Marcus said my name, something in his voice made me look up. You need to see this. The television showed a news anchor with a serious expression. The banner at the bottom read, New Developments in Custody Dispute. Questions are being raised today about the Davis family's allegations against Megan Anderson, the anchor said. Sources close to the case suggest that the custody documents presented by the family may have been forged and that there may be evidence of financial fraud. The screen cut to an expert, a family law professor from the local university. If these allegations are true, we're looking at a very serious criminal matter. Forging custody documents is a felony. Combined with the financial elements being discussed, this could result in significant prison time for everyone involved. Back to the anchor. We've reached out to the Davis family's attorney for comment but have not received a response. The custody hearing is scheduled for this afternoon. I stared at the screen. Someone leaked information, Marcus said. I don't know who, but it doesn't matter who. I watched the comments scroll by on the screen. The tone was shifting. People were asking questions, expressing doubt about my mother's tearful performance, wondering if they had been manipulated. The narrative was changing. The truth is getting out, Marcus said. People are starting to ask questions. Questions aren't enough. We need answers. In court, today. But for the first time in days, I felt something other than despair. I felt hope. At noon, we prepared to leave for the courthouse. I helped Ethan get dressed in the nice clothes I had bought him earlier in the week. He was nervous, picking at his sleeves, asking questions I didn't know how to answer. Mommy, will the judge be nice? I hope so, baby. What if Grandma is there? Will she yell again? I knelt down to his level, looking into those big eyes that had seen too much for 7 years old. Grandma might be there, but I want you to know something, okay? No matter what happens in that courtroom, I love you. I will always love you. And I will never, ever stop fighting for you. He nodded solemnly. I love you too, Mommy. I know, baby. I know. I stood and looked around the hotel room, the war room we had built over the past week. Papers and files and evidence that told the story of my family's cruelty and my fight for justice. Marcus was by the door holding the evidence folder. The man who had dropped everything to help me. Who had risked his career, his reputation, his peace of mind. Who had asked for nothing in return except the chance to stand beside me. My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I opened the message and found a photograph. Ashley leaving a building, looking over her shoulder nervously. A man beside her that I recognized from news articles, Thomas Webb. The timestamp was from this morning, just a few hours ago. Beneath the photo was a caption, "Thought you should know, they're panicking. Good luck today." I didn't recognize the number, didn't know who had sent it, but someone out there was watching. Someone else wanted to see Ashley fall. The web of people she had hurt was larger than anyone knew, and they were coming out of the shadows. I put my phone away and looked at Marcus. "Ready?" he asked. I thought about the woman I had been a week ago. Broken, desperate, alone. Walking into my parents' house expecting to find my happy, healthy son and finding a nightmare instead. I thought about the woman I was now, still tired, still scared, but no longer broken. No longer alone. I had walked into that hotel room a week ago, shattered and desperate. I was walking out something else entirely, armed with evidence that would destroy them, surrounded by people who believed in me, ready to face the family that had tried to break me. For 7 days I had fought in the darkness, gathering pieces of the truth. Now it was time to bring those pieces into the light. The courthouse was waiting. The judge was waiting. My mother and sister were waiting. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't afraid. I knew exactly what I had to do. And I knew exactly how to do it. Ready, I said. Today the truth would finally be heard. Today justice would finally be served. Today I would take back everything they had stolen from me, and nothing they could do would stop me. The courthouse loomed before us like a promise. I held Ethan's hand as we walked up the stone steps, Marcus on my other side, Diane ahead of us with her briefcase full of evidence. The December wind bit at our faces, but I barely felt it. Everything I had worked for, everything I had suffered through came down to the next few hours. Mommy? Ethan's voice was small. Is the judge nice? I don't know yet, baby, but I know that we're going to tell the truth today, and the truth matters. He nodded solemnly, trusting me with the kind of faith that children give to parents who haven't yet failed them. I squeezed his hand tighter. Diane met us in the lobby. She was calm, collected, a warrior preparing for battle. They're already inside, she said. Your mother, your sister, and their attorney. No sign of your father. Bob hadn't come. Somehow that didn't surprise me. He had spent his whole life avoiding confrontation. Why would today be any different? We entered the courtroom, and I saw them immediately. My mother sat at the petitioner's table dressed in black tissues already clutched in her hand. She looked fragile, devastated, the very picture of a concerned grandmother at her wits' end. It was a masterful costume. Ashley sat beside her wearing a demure dress that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Her face was arranged in an expression of sisterly concern, but her eyes kept darting to the door to Diane's briefcase to me. And in those eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. Fear. She knew something had changed. She just didn't know how much. Their attorney, Richard Hayes, shuffled papers nervously. He was a local man, well-dressed, probably competent at normal family disputes. He had no idea what was about to hit him. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The gallery behind us was sparse but notable. Karen sat in the back row, her forensic accountant beside her, a few reporters who had followed up on the morning news stories. And in the corner, a woman I didn't recognize taking careful notes. One of Ashley's other victims, perhaps. The web of people she had hurt finally gathering to watch her fall. I took my seat at the respondents' table, Marcus directly behind me in the gallery. He squeezed my shoulder once, a silent message of support. Ethan was with a court-appointed child advocate in a separate room, spared the worst of what was about to happen. That was a mercy I was grateful for. The bailiff stood. All rise. The Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. The judge entered, a stern-faced woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She settled into her seat and surveyed the courtroom. Be seated. We are here today in the matter of Davis versus Anderson regarding custody of the minor child Ethan Anderson. Mr. Hayes, you may present your case. Richard Hayes stood buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. Your Honor, my clients Linda and Robert Davis are here today out of profound concern for their grandson Ethan. As the court will see, the child's mother, Megan Anderson, has exhibited a pattern of erratic and unstable behavior that puts the child at risk. He presented documents, the edited emails, the press conference statements, character witnesses who had agreed to testify to my supposed instability. Then my mother took the stand. The performance was extraordinary. Even knowing what I knew, even having seen behind the mask for years, I almost believed her myself. I only wanted to help, Linda said, her voice trembling with carefully calibrated emotion. When Megan took that job overseas, she asked us to care for Ethan. We were happy to do it. We loved that boy more than anything. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She dabbed at them delicately with her tissue. But something was wrong with Megan. She was distant, suspicious. She accused us of terrible things. And then one night she took Ethan from our home without warning. We've been so worried about him. Hayes nodded sympathetically. And how was Ethan's well-being during the time he was in your care? He was thriving. Happy, healthy, loved. My mother's voice broke artfully. We gave him everything a child could want. New toys, healthy meals, time with his cousin Madison. He was part of a real family for the first time in his life. The implication hung in the air. That I had failed to provide a real family. That Ethan was better off without me. I watched her lie with practiced ease, and I felt something strange. Not anger, not hurt. Just a cold, clear recognition of what she was. A woman who had spent so long lying that she probably believed her own stories now. A woman who could cry on command and make anyone believe she was the victim. But not today. Not anymore. Hayes wrapped up his case with a request for emergency custody. For the child's safety. From the outside, it must have looked convincing. A devoted grandmother. A troubled mother. A simple choice. Judge Morrison's face revealed nothing. She turned to our table. Ms. Torres, you may present your response. Diane stood, and the energy in the room shifted. Your Honor, what we are about to present will change the nature of these proceedings entirely. The petitioners have painted a picture of a loving family and a troubled mother. The evidence will show the opposite. She clicked a remote, and the courtroom screen lit up with financial documents. The respondent, Megan Anderson, sent $5,000 per month to an account designated for her son's care. That's $15,000 over 3 months. Let me show you where that money actually went. Bank statements appeared on screen. Transfer after transfer to ADH Boutique LLC. ADH Boutique is a company owned by Ashley Davis Harper, the petitioner's daughter. Every dollar Ms. Anderson sent for her son's food, clothing, and care was redirected to her sister's failing business venture. I watched Ashley's face. The first crack appeared in her composure. Diane continued. And what was Ashley Davis Harper doing while she was supposedly helping care for her nephew? The screen filled with Instagram posts. Ashley at a spa retreat. Ashley shopping with designer bags. Ashley on vacation in Miami. All time-stamped during the months she was supposedly caring for Ethan. These photographs were posted while the child was living in a converted storage room in the basement, eating cold leftovers and developing malnutrition. Hayes stood. Objection. This is inflammatory and irrelevant to... Overruled. Judge Morrison's voice was sharp. I want to see this evidence. Continue, Ms. Torres. Diane pulled up medical records. The emergency room documentation from the night I found Ethan. Your Honor, these are the medical records from when Ms. Anderson brought her son to the hospital. The attending physician documented malnutrition, dehydration, and signs consistent with extended neglect. The child had a fever of 103.4 degrees. He weighed significantly less than the average for his age. The judge's expression changed. Not dramatically, but enough. Interest had become concern. Concern was becoming something darker. The petitioners claim the child was thriving, Diane said. The medical evidence tells a very different story. Linda's composure cracked slightly. She whispered something to Ashley, who shook her head sharply. But we were just getting started. Your Honor, we would like to present video testimony. A screen was set up, and Grace's face appeared. She looked tired but determined, her eyes bright with decades of suppressed truth finally being spoken. My name is Grace Davis. I am the mother of Robert Davis and the grandmother-in-law of Megan Anderson. I am 84 years old, and I have been waiting 20 years to tell this story. Grace spoke for 15 minutes. She described watching Linda manipulate and control everyone around her. She described the favoritism toward Ashley and the dismissal of Megan. She described financial irregularities she had documented over the years, letters she had intercepted, conversations she had overheard. I changed my will last year, Grace said, her voice steady. Everything I have will go to Megan and Ethan, not to Linda and Ashley. Because Megan is the only member of this family who has ever truly cared about that child. Linda went pale. Ashley's hands gripped the table edge until her knuckles turned white. But the testimony is not the most important evidence, Diane said, as Grace's image faded. We also have recordings. She pressed play. The courtroom speakers crackled with audio. Ashley's voice clear and unmistakable. The documents are ready. File them Monday morning. And a male voice. And if she contests, she won't even know they exist until it's too late. By the time she figures out what happened, Ethan will have been living with us for months. I watched my mother's face as her own voice joined the recording. The documents will hold up in court. And then Ashley again. Transfer the first payment to the Cayman account. Once it's offshore, she'll never find it. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Hayes leaped to his feet. Objection. This recording was obtained without the consent of the parties. Diane didn't even blink. Your Honor, this is footage from the Ring security camera installed at the respondent's family home. It is Ms. Anderson's camera on her property recording activity on her own premises. It is entirely admissible. Judge Morrison's voice was ice. Overruled. Continue. Hayes sank back into his seat. Ashley was shaking now, her mask completely gone. Finally, Your Honor. Diane said, her voice softening. We would like to present testimony from the child himself, not in person but through his own words. She held up the first drawing. A small figure in a dark room, stars visible through a window that wasn't there. Ethan drew this picture and titled it, My Room. The room he was kept in was a converted storage space in the basement. It had no windows. The second drawing. A table with 2 plates, one large and one small. This drawing shows mealtimes in the Davis household. The large plate belonged to the petitioner's granddaughter, Madison. The small plate belonged to Ethan. The third drawing. A woman with an angry face, mouth open wide, a small figure cowering in the corner. The words, Stop being bad, scrawled above in crayon. This is what happened when Ethan asked to call his mother. He was told he was being bad. He was told his mother didn't want to talk to him. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Someone in the gallery was crying. The fourth drawing. A small boy alone with a question above his head that broke my heart even now. Why doesn't anyone love me? Diane read aloud. A 7-year-old child drew this while in the care of people who claimed to love him more than anything. Judge Morrison's face had transformed. The impassive mask was gone, replaced by barely controlled fury. Regarding the emails presented by the petitioners, Diane continued, I would like to show the full unedited versions. She displayed the complete messages, not the fragments my family had cherry-picked. These emails were written during Ms. Anderson's divorce, a painful period when she had no support from her family. They were stolen from her private account by her sister and edited to remove context. The phrase, I wish they would disappear, was part of a sentence that concluded, from my nightmares. The complete statement was a wish for peace, not a threat of violence. Hayes didn't even bother objecting. He knew it was over. Your Honor, Hayes said, desperation creeping into his voice. My clients request a brief recess to denied. Judge Morrison's voice cut like a blade. I have heard enough to understand the nature of this case. Ms. Davis Harper, I have serious concerns about the conduct revealed here today. Ashley couldn't contain herself any longer. This is ridiculous. She's the one who abandoned him. She's the one who left her son with us and ran off to Singapore. Ms. Davis Harper, the judge said coldly, you will control yourself in my courtroom. Linda tried a different approach. Your Honor, I was just trying to help my grandson. Whatever mistakes were made... Mistakes? Judge Morrison's voice rose. You forged custody documents. You embezzled money intended for a child's care. You maintained offshore accounts to hide stolen funds. These are not mistakes, Mrs. Davis. These are crimes. Your Honor, Diane interjected smoothly. I should inform the court that federal authorities have been notified regarding the offshore accounts. The FBI has opened an investigation into potential money laundering and wire fraud. Dead silence. Ashley's face went white. For the first time, real terror showed in her eyes. Additionally, Diane continued, multiple witnesses have come forward regarding other fraudulent schemes perpetrated by Ms. Davis Harper over the past several years. It appears the petitioners have a pattern of this behavior. Ashley's voice was barely a whisper. What witnesses? The people you stole from Ms. Davis Harper. It seems you made quite a few enemies over the years. They've been waiting for this day. Judge Morrison called for a 15-minute recess to consider the implications of what has been presented. The courtroom began to empty, but I knew the battle was already won. I walked into the hallway, heading for the restroom, trying to process what was happening. The sound of heels clicking on marble followed me. I turned. Ashley stood 10 feet away alone. Her makeup was smudged, her perfect composure shattered. She looked like what she was, a woman whose entire world was crumbling. "You think you've won?" she said. Her voice was low, venomous. "I think the evidence speaks for itself." She stepped closer. "You've always had everything. The grades, the career, the perfect son. You made the rest of us look bad just by existing. So you decided to destroy me. I decided to take what was mine." Her eyes blazed with something between hatred and madness. "You didn't deserve any of it. You were just the practice child, the one Mom made her mistakes on before she had me." I felt the words like blows, but they didn't hurt anymore. I had heard variations of this my entire life. The only difference now was that Ashley was finally saying it out loud. "And Ethan? What did he ever do to you?" Something ugly twisted her face. "He was the key. Control him, control you. Make you need us, make you dependent. Then take everything. He's a child, your nephew, and you were going to use him as a pawn in some sick game. He was always just a tool." Ashley laughed, and the sound was hollow. "You think I actually cared about that kid? He was the leverage, the thing that would keep you sending money and begging for scraps of approval, just like always." I stared at her, and for the first time I saw my sister clearly. Not the golden child, not the favored daughter, not even the mastermind I had discovered over the past week. Just a broken, bitter woman who had spent her entire life taking from others because she didn't know how to build anything herself. "I spent 30 years trying to earn your love," I said quietly. "Yours and Mom's. I gave up pieces of myself over and over, hoping that someday you would see me as family. And now I see you for what you are. And I'm done." The doors at the end of the hallway opened. 2 people walked through, a man and a woman in dark suits. Their badges were visible even from here. FBI. They walked toward us with purpose. Ashley turned, saw them, and I watched the blood drain from her face. I had spent my whole life standing in my sister's shadow, trying to earn love from people who saw me as nothing more than a resource to be used. Now we stood face to face in that courthouse hallway, and for the first time I saw her clearly. Not the golden child, not the favored daughter, just a broken, bitter woman who had destroyed everything she touched. "Ashley Davis Harper." The voice came from the female agent. My sister turned fully, and I watched the last of her arrogance crumble. "We need you to come with us. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and wire fraud. You have the right to remain silent." She looked back at me, and in her eyes I saw something I had never seen before. Not anger, not hatred, fear. The kind of fear that comes when you finally realize that your lies have caught up with you, that your games are over, that there is nowhere left to run. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I just watched as they led my sister away in handcuffs, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor one last time. The same sister who had smiled at my wedding, who had held my son as a baby and cooed over how perfect he was, who had hugged me at every holiday and told me she loved me. All lies. Every moment. Every word. Behind me I heard the courtroom doors open, heard my mother's voice rising in protest, demanding to know what was happening, heard more agents moving through the hallway. "Linda Davis," another agent's voice. "We have questions for you as well." My mother's protests grew louder, more desperate, the mask finally cracking completely as she realized that her perfect performance had failed, that all her tears and tissues and trembling hands had meant nothing in the face of truth. The reckoning had finally come, and I was still standing. After 34 years of trying to earn their love, after everything they had taken from me, after watching them nearly destroy my son, I was still standing. And they were the ones in handcuffs. Justice. Real justice. Not revenge, not payback, just the simple truth finally coming to light. It tasted like freedom. I stood in the courthouse hallway and watched them lead my sister away. The FBI agents flanked her on either side, her hands cuffed behind her back, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. She didn't look back at me again. Maybe she couldn't bear to. Behind me, the courtroom doors burst open. More agents emerged, and with them came my mother. Linda was not going quietly. "This is a mistake," she screamed, her carefully crafted composure completely shattered. "I'm the victim here. My daughter has turned everyone against me. This is a conspiracy." Her eyes found me across the hallway. For a moment, everything stopped. I saw the woman who had rocked me to sleep as a child, who had taught me to tie my shoes and brush my hair and say please and thank you, who had smiled at me across countless dinner tables and told me she loved me. And I saw the woman who had stolen my money, neglected my son, and tried to take everything I had ever built. "This is your fault," Linda screamed as they pulled her toward the exit. "You destroyed this family. You ungrateful, selfish, horrible." The doors closed behind her, cutting off the rest. I stood there for a long moment, processing what had just happened. Then Diane's hand was on my shoulder, guiding me back toward the courtroom. "The judge wants to issue her ruling before we adjourn." Judge Morrison looked tired. The weight of what she had witnessed showed in the lines around her eyes and the set of her shoulders. But her voice was steady when she spoke. "In light of the evidence presented today and the criminal proceedings now underway against the petitioners, this court has no choice but to issue an immediate ruling." I held my breath. "Full custody of the minor child Ethan Anderson is hereby granted to his mother Megan Anderson effective immediately. All visitation rights for Linda and Robert Davis are denied pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. A restraining order is issued against Linda Davis and Ashley Davis Harper, prohibiting them from coming within 500 feet of either Ms. Anderson or her son." I felt the words wash over me like a wave. Full custody, effective immediately. My son was mine. No more fighting. No more uncertainty. No more lying awake at night wondering if they would find some way to take him from me. It was over. "Ms. Anderson," the judge's voice softened slightly, "in 30 years on the bench, I have never seen such a calculated betrayal of family trust. The evidence presented today reveals a pattern of manipulation, fraud, and cruelty that defies comprehension. I am deeply sorry for what you and your son have endured. I hope you can find healing from this." "Thank you, Your Honor." She nodded and banged her gavel. "Court is adjourned." I sat there for a moment, unable to move, the magnitude of what had just happened settling over me like a blanket. After everything, after all the fighting and fear and sleepless nights, we had won. Really, truly won. Then Diane was hugging me and Marcus was there, his arms wrapping around both of us, and I was crying without knowing when the tears had started. My son ran to me and I caught him in my arms and held him like I would never let go. "Mommy, did we win?" I laughed and cried and held him tighter. "Yes, baby, we won." 2 hours later, I stood outside the courthouse and watched my mother being loaded into a police car. The media had arrived in force, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. Linda ignored them all, her face a mask of rigid fury as the officers helped her into the vehicle. For just a moment she looked up and our eyes met through the car window. There was no remorse in her expression, no regret. Only hatred, pure and burning, directed at the daughter who had finally refused to be used. The car pulled away, and I felt something shift inside me. I had spent my whole life trying to earn that woman's love, trying to be good enough, useful enough, invisible enough to finally deserve her approval. And now I watched her being driven to jail and I realized something that should have been obvious years ago. It was never about me. Her cruelty, her favoritism, her manipulation. None of it had ever been about anything I did or didn't do. It was about her. Her wounds, her choices, her inability to love anyone except on her own twisted terms. I had wasted 34 years trying to fix something that was never mine to fix. But not anymore. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked quietly, putting his arm around my shoulders. I watched the police car disappear around the corner. "Yeah," I said. "I think I finally am." The next morning, my phone rang. My father's number. I stared at it for a long moment before answering. "Megan." His voice was hoarse, broken. He had been crying. "I didn't know it would go this far. I swear I didn't know." "You knew enough, Dad. You knew what they were doing to Ethan. You knew about the forged papers. You chose to look away." "I was afraid. Your mother, she's in jail now. Ashley, too. The lawyer they used is being processed. Everyone who helped them is facing charges." I paused. "Everyone except you." Silence on the other end. "What do I do now?" he asked finally. She's gone. They're all gone. The house is empty. I don't know how to. I felt the old pull, the familiar urge to comfort, to fix, to make everything okay for someone who had never done the same for me. I had spent my whole life responding to that pull. Not anymore. That's not my problem to solve, Dad. Please, Megan. I'm your father. I made mistakes, but I love you. I've always loved you. Love isn't just a word. It's a choice. It's showing up. It's protecting the people who depend on you. My voice was steady. You never did any of those things. Not for me. Not for Ethan. Will I ever see him again? My grandson. I thought about it carefully before answering. I don't know. Maybe someday. But not now. Not for a long time. I took a breath. I spent my whole life trying to fix this family. I'm done fixing. I'm done sacrificing. It's time for me to build something new. I hung up before he could respond. The weight of it settled over me, the finality of cutting that last tie. For a moment I felt the old guilt, the old fear that I was being cruel, ungrateful, selfish. Then I looked at Ethan, playing quietly on the hotel bed, and I felt something else. Freedom. A week later we visited Grace. She was waiting for us in her room at the nursing home, sitting by the window, watching for our car. When she saw us coming up the walk, she started crying before we even reached the door. You did it, she said, holding me tight. You did what I couldn't do for 20 years. I couldn't have done it without you. The evidence you gathered, the recordings, the testimony, you did the hard part. She pulled back to look at me, her eyes fierce despite the tears. You found the courage to fight. That was all you. Ethan climbed onto her lap and she held him like he was the most precious thing in the world, because to her, he was. I have something for you, Grace said once the tears had settled. I've already spoken to my lawyer. I'm not waiting until I die to transfer the inheritance. I want to see you use it. Grace, I can't. You can and you will. Her voice was firm. The house is worth over $400,000. The savings and investments add another $200,000. It's all yours and Ethan's. I stared at her, overwhelmed. This isn't charity, Grace said. This is justice. That money should have gone to you years ago. Linda took enough from both of us. Now we take it back. I thought about everything Grace had done. 20 years of watching, documenting, waiting. 20 years of being dismissed as a senile old woman while she built a case that would eventually bring down the people who had hurt us both. She had fought a silent war while I was too blind to see the enemy. I don't know how to thank you, I said. You already have. You gave me the ending I thought I'd never see. She reached out and took my hand. I can die in peace now, knowing that boy is safe. Knowing you're finally free. Don't talk about dying. You've got years left. Grace laughed, and it was the brightest sound I'd ever heard from her. Maybe I do. And for the first time in decades, I'm actually looking forward to them. Marcus stepped forward, and Grace's eyes shifted to him appraisingly. And who is this young man who's been taking care of my girl? Marcus smiled. Someone who plans to stick around, ma'am, if she'll let me. Grace studied him for a long moment, her sharp eyes missing nothing. Whatever she saw must have satisfied her because she nodded with approval. Good. She deserves someone who stays, someone who fights for her instead of against her. She looked back at me. Don't let this one go. Good men are harder to find than justice. I won't, I promised. Ethan tugged at Grace's sleeve. Great-grandma, I made you something. He pulled out a piece of paper, a new drawing different from all the ones that had come before. This one showed a house with big windows and a bright sun. 3 people stood in front of it holding hands. A woman, a boy, and a man. They were all smiling. Above them in careful crayon letters, Ethan had written, My family. Grace looked at the drawing for a long time. When she looked up, her eyes were wet again. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. 2 weeks after the trial, I got a text from an unknown number. Thank you for what you did. Can I buy you a coffee? I think I owe you an explanation. I agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop downtown. When I arrived, a woman was already waiting. Mid-40s, professional dress, nervous hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Megan Anderson. She stood as I approached. I'm Diana Webb, Thomas Webb's ex-wife. I sat down across from her, curious. I'm the one who sent you that photo, Diana said, of Ashley and Thomas meeting the morning of your hearing. I've been watching your case for weeks. Why? Because Thomas ruined my life too. I was married to him for 15 years before I found out what he really was. The fraud, the forged documents, the money laundering. When I discovered the truth, I left. But I couldn't prove anything. He was too careful. She looked down at her tea. When I heard about your case, when I saw Ashley's name connected to his, I knew this was my chance. Not just for justice for you, but for everyone he ever hurt. You tipped off the journalists too, the story that ran the morning of the hearing. Diana nodded. I have friends in media. They were happy to help once they understood what was really going on. I thought about all the anonymous help that had appeared throughout this nightmare, the shifting media coverage, the photo that arrived at exactly the right moment, the sense that I wasn't fighting alone. Every victim Ashley ever made is watching this case, Diana said. Every person Thomas ever hurt. You didn't just fight for yourself, Megan. You fought for all of us, and we wanted you to know we had your back too. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. Diana smiled. You don't have to say anything. Just keep winning. Keep building your new life. That's the best revenge of all. 3 months later, spring arrived. I stood on the porch of my new house watching Ethan play in the backyard with our new puppy. The house that had once belonged to Grace was ours now. We had renovated it over the winter, filling it with light and color and warmth. Every room had windows. Every corner was filled with love. Marcus came out to stand beside me, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. He's getting better at throwing the ball, he observed. He's getting better at everything. It was true. 3 months of safety, of stability, of being loved without conditions had transformed my son. The shadows under his eyes were gone. The fear that used to live in his expression had faded. He laughed now, constantly, loudly, like a child should. Have you heard from your father? Marcus asked. He called last week. Grace let him visit her at the nursing home. I took a sip of coffee. She said he looked old, tired, lost. Do you feel sorry for him? I thought about it. I feel sad for the father I could have had. The one who might have protected me, stood up for me, chosen me. I shook my head. But the man who actually exists, I don't feel much of anything for him anymore. And that's okay. Marcus nodded understanding without needing more words. Inside, my tablet chimed. Grace's face appeared on the screen for our daily video call. There are my favorite people, she said, beaming. Is that puppy still eating everything in sight? Only shoes and pillows. I laughed. We're making progress. I saw on the news that Ashley's trial is scheduled for next month. Federal court. They're expecting a lengthy sentence if she's convicted. When? Grace corrected. When she's convicted. That girl isn't talking her way out of this one. I glanced at Marcus and we shared a look. The updates came regularly now. Ashley was still in federal custody awaiting trial on charges that had expanded as the investigation continued. Money laundering, wire fraud, conspiracy forgery. The FBI had traced offshore accounts spanning 3 countries. Her lawyer was already negotiating plea deals, but the prosecutors weren't interested. They wanted to make an example. Linda was under house arrest, her assets frozen, her reputation destroyed. The church friends who had believed her press conference had quietly distanced themselves once the truth came out. The community that had once admired her now crossed the street to avoid her. Derek had testified for the prosecution in exchange for reduced charges and was rebuilding his life somewhere far from here. He had sent me a letter last month apologizing again for his role in everything. I hadn't responded. Some bridges don't need to be rebuilt. Bob visited Grace, sometimes a broken man with nothing left to lose, finally paying attention to the mother he had ignored for decades. Grace said he cried every visit. I didn't feel much about that anymore. Karen had won her civil suit and was using the settlement to start over. We had dinner occasionally, 2 women who had survived the same storm, sharing war stories and new dreams. The world had shifted. The people who had hurt me were facing consequences. And I was here in this house full of light with the people I loved. Mommy, Ethan's voice rang out from the backyard. Come see, I taught the puppy to sit. I set down my coffee and walked out to join him, Marcus and Grace's video image following along. 3 months ago, I had walked into my parents' house looking for the family I had always wanted. Instead, I had found the truth I had always needed. Blood doesn't make you family. Love does. Sacrifice does. Showing up when it matters does. I looked at my son laughing in the spring sunshine, healthy and whole and finally free. At Marcus standing beside me like he always would. At Grace on the screen, tears of joy in her eyes, finally seeing the happy ending she had fought for over 20 years to create. They had tried to take everything from me. My money, my reputation, my son, my sanity. But they had failed. Because in the end, they had given me something they never intended. They had given me the strength to walk away, the courage to fight back, the wisdom to build something real from the ashes of their lies. I had spent 34 years trying to earn a place in a family that never wanted me. Now I had a family that I had chosen, and that chose me back. Ethan ran to me, puppy bouncing at his heels, and threw his arms around my waist. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby, more than anything in the world. He grinned up at me, and in his smile, I saw the future, birthdays and holidays and ordinary Tuesdays, scraped knees and homework struggles and teenage rebellions, a lifetime of moments big and small that I had almost lost. But I hadn't lost them. I had fought for them, and I had won, and that I realized was worth everything I had survived. It was worth even more.